Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 5 of Herstory Circle Global Online Summit for November 2021. Wherever you are in the world watching live today or on the replay, welcome to all of you, and so grateful to have you all here. We've got some people already here from around the world, and of course we've got the lovely Gertrude, who is the founder and curator of Herstory Circle, and she will share very shortly some really exciting news for Herstory Circle. And of course, Ruth, who controls everything behind the scenes. Good morning, good morning. And we've got the lovely Renee from America, from the US. Good morning, good morning. And Tennille, good morning, good morning. Lovely to see everybody. And for everybody that joins, looking forward to seeing you all. My name is Mariam Bova. I am a results coach and a registered nurse, and I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I feel very privileged to be hosting today. And for most of you know what Herstory is all about, but for those of you who are just kind of coming on board, Herstory Circle is a beautiful platform that provides a space for women and men to come to share their stories, their personal stories or their expertise, so that they have the opportunity to inspire and to share some nuggets of wisdom about how change is created and creating a sense of community and bringing us all together. And we have a lineup of speakers from all around the world sharing their unique stories, their unique gifts. So hang on for the ride, and look forward to hosting and introducing all those beautiful speakers today and getting to know them a little bit more on this platform. So for this morning, we happen to have some really exciting news that's been happening behind the scenes. Gertrude's been wheeling and dealing as she does, and this is no different. So we want to kick off with some really exciting news, especially those that you have come on board with Herstory Circle, and for the ones that are considering being on this platform and joining in with this community. I assure you that Gertrude has got you back, and she's got big visions for this with the highest of intentions. So I'm going to hand it over to Gertrude. She's got 2 incredible pieces of information to share with you this morning. So over to you.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody, wherever you are in the world. Man, this has been a crazy week since Friday. It feels like everything we've been working towards for the last 2 years has come into fruition and come into being. As you know, we won the Australia-New Zealand Women in Tech Award for the app that I've designed for the Herstory movement. And 2 of the investors who happen to be the judges at this event are now on board to help us build our platform, get the app into the world, attract major investors to invest in this movement and everything that comes with it. So that was the first piece of news. And I'm starting to understand a little bit why I'm stuck in Australia. As you know, I came to Melbourne to be with my daughter. She had her first baby, my first grandson. And the day that I arrived in Australia, the Australia-New Zealand bubble closed. So I can't officially go back to New Zealand right now. I'm stuck in Australia indefinitely. So I've been here for months, and all of these magical things are happening here in Australia. And these investors' office is literally a 15-minute drive from my daughter's house. I could even walk there. So sometimes you get stuck in life and you think, why is this happening to me? And then things start to unfold and they make sense. And that's the space that I'm in right now. The second piece of news, I'm going to share a picture. So a couple of months ago, I saw a post on LinkedIn. And this post was sharing a concept to raise money to send a group of girls to university in the United States. The lady organizing this is one of Oprah's friends. Her name is Dr. Tererai Trent. She's from Zimbabwe. She was featured on Oprah's show a few years ago, and she was trying to raise $100,000 to get a group of girls from Zimbabwe to go and study in the United States. And so I responded to this ad, and on that particular day, an amazing woman based in Detroit, Michigan, Linda Schlesinger, donated some money to the Herstory movement. And I thought I could also make a difference and take part of that money and invest in the girls from Zimbabwe to go to the US. So there's something that happens when you give. It comes back tenfold in the most unexpected ways, and not from the people you help. This is one thing I'm learning very, very slowly as I continue my passion to give and to make a difference in other people's lives. Cut a long story short, Dr. Tererai Trent decided that she is going to produce a book, and she was looking for submissions of stories from other women from all over the world. And the book is called The Sacred Promise. And it is a book about women who made a promise to themselves somewhere in their lives. And what is that promise? Can you go back to it? Can you fulfill that dream? And my dream, as most of you know, is to be the first African woman to write, direct, and produce an Oscar award-winning screenplay. And so I put in my idea, and I have now been picked to be part of this amazing anthology. So this is the book cover. We'll be sharing the link in the post with this video, so you can go online and pre-order a copy of your book. Please do it before Christmas, because we want to get as many Christmas sales as possible. The proceeds of this book are going towards the Dr. Tererai Trent Foundation. She is building up a fund to get as many young girls from Zimbabwe to study and get higher education. Part of what I'm doing with my efforts in these book sales is to help our Africa chairperson and my right-hand woman, Ruth Dengwani, and her son to also go to the United States, for Ruth to do her master's and for her son to finish off his degree. Now, a lot of you know Ruth. You know how hard she has been working to help us get Herstory on its feet. So please know that as you are buying a book, you are helping me get my little sister to change her life, leave Zimbabwe, go to the US, finish her education. And also know that you are now part of a bigger family of amazing women. I mean, the people who are in this book are people like Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love. I think she's going to be writing the foreword. She has attracted some really phenomenal women to support us in getting this book out. So I'm really excited about that too. So we will start our day with a video. Miriam, if you want to come back on. And this video is from a doctor from the United States. Dr. Ashley is going to be talking about women's health. We did a campaign in trying to attract doctors who are focused on women's health. So throughout the conference, we'll be running some of those videos, and she shared some really interesting nuggets of wisdom for women, particularly of my age, going into menopause, things to look out for, things to do. So that's what we'll start off with today. So I will share that video, Miriam, and then you can take over and spin your magic for the day as usual.
Fabulous.
Thank everybody for being here today.
Yeah. Before you share your screen, Gertrude, I really just want to take a second just to really acknowledge what you're doing. Having sort of come across you this year and just behind the scenes, just watching and sort of seeing what you're doing, just dogged determination. You have this ability just to transform things. When you have an idea, you don't rest on it. off you go. The people that you're connecting with, obviously, getting out in those circles is really getting your vision of Herstory out there. And I think everyone that's involved is very conscious of how much it's not just a single vision. It's a vision for everybody that's involved, and to really raise consciousness on the planet. And this is your gift to the world in amongst everything else that you've been doing over the years. And it takes a lot of time and effort out of your own personal life. But clearly you just wouldn't be doing life any other way.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you for leading.
All right, we'll start off our day with Dr. Ashley. Here we go.
Beautiful.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Ashley Margison. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is a little province of 1 million people on the east coast of Canada. I got into naturopathic medicine, and my mom likes to say it came from this grade 7 health class where we had sex ed. And I remember going through this sex ed class, and everybody was talking about what a period was and how you shouldn't get pregnant. And that was the extent of it. And this idea of women's health being something that was negative didn't quite stick with me. And so I started to ask questions, and I came home and I chatted with my mom, and I was like, I don't understand. We're talking about 1/4 of a month. We're talking about 1 week. Well, what happens on the other 3 weeks? How do we get a period? How do the hormones shift? What is this all about? And are my hormones really just about whether or not I can have babies? Well, fast forward from grade 7 health class, and I'm currently 31 years old. I've been practicing for 5 years now, and I help women harness their hormones so that their health works for them and not against them. It's an absolutely fascinating thing to get to do every single day. And what my goal is, and what our goal is at Cornerstone Naturopathic, is to help put healthcare back into people's hands. So healthcare has been something that it's been a top-down approach for years. Your doctor tells you what to do, and then you do it. And either option A or option B, or sometimes option G happens. Well, we think it's a little bit of a different approach than that. So our goal is to basically act as navigators. What do you need to do? Where are you at right now? Where is your health going to be in 5, 10, 15, 30 years? And how can we create this absolutely amazing foundation so that your body and your hormones are truly making it easier for you to live?
Wow. It's not every day that we get information on what our hormones are actually doing to us as women.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have very unique ways of helping women harness their hormones and work with them. Now, throughout the stages of a woman's life, your hormones are constantly changing. Take us through the path from when you are in puberty, what happens at that stage, your childbearing age, and then when you go into perimenopause and menopause.
I like to think of hormones as 7-year cycles. And that 7-year cycle not only comes from some of the research that we have that are clinically relevant today, but it's also steeped in traditional Chinese medicine. And so every 7 years in Chinese medicine, things change. So you basically enter a new stage of life. And that's very kind of in line with how our hormonal structure works. So generally, you get your period somewhere between the ages of 11 to 16, and that's your general time frame. Now, what that is based off of your mom and based off of your genetics, based off of your health history to date. And so as you're a teenager, basically what your hormones are doing is they're trying to figure out what's going on. Things are supposed to be a little irregular. Things are supposed to be a little different. Things are supposed to be a little off. It's normal at that point to have some spotting. It's normal to skip a period every once in a while because what's happening is your estrogen is rising slowly over time. That estrogen talks to another hormone known as the follicle stimulating hormone, which is what's responsible for growing eggs that you then eventually ovulate. And we don't get things right every single time, especially at the beginning when you're learning something. So yeah, our hormones are a little bit different as we're teenagers. Bring that into your 20s though, and your hormones have generally stabilized. And so what we see at that is two very distinct cycles. There's the follicular phase and there's the luteal phase. Your follicular phase is when estrogen's driving the conversation. Estrogen rises over the first half of your cycle, starting with day one is what we count as day one of our period is day one of our cycle. And it rises. As it does that, it actually suppresses that follicle stimulating hormone a little bit. So instead of growing multiple follicles on each ovary, we just grow one. And eventually, as that follicle reaches kind of its maturing point, we get a spike in another hormone known as the luteinizing hormone, which breaks open that follicle, and we get an egg, and we get the corpus luteum. Now, everybody talks about the egg because if the egg gets fertilized and it implants in the uterus, then that's great. That's fantastic. We now have a pregnancy that we're looking at. But the corpus luteum is kind of the main driver. The corpus luteum is what progesterone is built out of. And progesterone is the hormone that relaxes everything. It chills everything out. It calms your brain down. It actually works more on your brain than it does on your uterus itself. But progesterone's role is actually to offset and balance through all of the changes that are happening with estrogen in the luteal phase of our cycle. As we enter into the end of that luteal phase, so ovulation to start of our period, we get a decline in both estrogen and progesterone, which causes us to start our cycle. Now, that will continue for anywhere from kind of age 18 to age 35, 36, 40 is that kind of mid-cycle childbearing years. And then we enter perimenopause. And whenever I meet a patient who are working with her hormones and stabilizing them through perimenopause, the one thing we know that is absolutely for sure is that nothing is for sure. And the reason for that is we don't consistently ovulate during perimenopause. So we get what we call anovulatory cycles. And these anovulatory cycles can affect not only our physical bodies, but also our brains. Women are more likely, 7 times more likely, in fact, to be put on an antidepressant during their perimenopausal years than any other time in their life. And it's actually because their hormones are shifting. What happens, though, when we get anovulatory cycles is we get a continuation of a rise in estrogen. And that continuation of a rise in estrogen is they cause what we call loop cycles. So LLOP, and they're known as luteal OTIF phase events. And this is what an anovulatory cycle is. So one cycle, you might get a really light period. It's nice. It's really easy. You're like, this is great. I can totally handle this. And then the next cycle, it's super heavy. Well, what actually happened was that first cycle, you didn't ovulate. And so that estrogen continued and continued and continued to rise until you ovulated the next cycle. And so as that continues, generally over 10 years, you get your period. Well, you ovulate less and less and less. And so you're getting these different flows associated with your period because sometimes you're ovulating and sometimes you're not. And then one day it just stops and you enter what we call menopause. So as you enter menopause, your estradiol, which is called E2, decreases. Progesterone is no longer something that we are making in large amounts because we're no longer ovulating. But there's two other types of estrogen, so E1 and E3, estrone and estriol, that increase. And as we move through menopause, what our bodies are learning is how to compensate in different ways. So instead of relaxing into this rhythm of our hormones that we've learned over the past 20, 30 years, we're having to create new rhythms and new circadian rhythms. And as menopause hits and as it continues on into those postmenopausal years, we actually use more of our muscles, we use more protein, we use more of those neurotransmitters, so our brain chemistry, to offset and continue to kind of support our health.
So what are some of the natural ways that you can regulate your hormones?
So it's not, I mean, I get asked these questions a lot. It's not necessarily about how do you regulate your hormones. It's more so about how do you bring awareness to what's going on and being able to say, is this what should be happening or is this what shouldn't be happening? So take perimenopause, for example. A lot of my patients, because we don't talk about loop events, a lot of my patients will come in and be like, my hormones are all over the place. I'm having different cycles. Like one period, I'm bleeding through a tampon in 2 hours, and the next period, I'm not. And that's actually exactly what should be happening. Those are luteal otophase events. They're supposed to happen in perimenopause. Now, ideally, we don't want it to be that extreme, but this is now a normal and expected thing to happen. But we have to teach you how to be aware of it so that you can learn to manage it and learn to manage your life. And that's where the burnout conversation comes in. So burnout is something that has been around for a long time. And so the global pandemic and COVID and having to work from home and manage children at home, especially, brought the burnout conversation to the forefront. The data, though, is 40 years old. This is not new data, but what we're learning is how does it fit into our modern world? So burnout is a WHO, so World Health Organization, a diagnosis, and it involves 3 different things. One is feelings of apathy generally towards your job. The second is feelings of negativism or cynicism. And the third is a decrease in productivity. Now, burnout as a diagnosis has to be defined at this point in conjunction with a occupation. But what we don't define is what is an occupation. So an occupation is, yes, you can have a 9 to 5. You could also be an entrepreneur. You could be volunteering. You could be sitting on a board. You could be a stay-at-home parent. You could be parenting and taking care of an elderly parent. You could be caregiving in any instance. And so occupations do not just mean 9 to 5 work. They mean all of those. But burnout is something that is plaguing women much more than it's plaguing men at a much earlier age. And so within our Cornerstone Naturopathic team, we've been treating burnout for the past 10 years. And so my partner, Ben, was the original starter to all of our burnout conversations. And over the past number of years, we've been developing through how do you actually treat burnout. Because it's an occupational event, you need to be having conversations with your work team. You need to be having conversations at a company and an organization level in order to create burnout prevention strategies. Where we come in is how do you develop through individual coping mechanisms so that your physiology and your biochemistry are able to adapt to stressful situations without burning you out. There's no such thing as not being burnt out. Stage 1 burnout actually feels amazing. You're running on adrenaline. You have all of the energy in the world. But if you don't have those coping mechanisms in place, then what happens is you start to tip into stage 2 and stage 3 and stage 4 burnout, which is where you'll start to see symptoms of anxiety and symptoms of depression, symptoms of digestive changes. You'll see hormonal changes. You are more likely to see insulin resistance pop up, which can mimic PCOS, which is a hormonal and an endocrine diagnosis. You're more likely to see an intensity in symptoms of endometriosis. You're more likely to see an intensity in symptoms of PMS. And so as we're going through what a diagnosis is from a women's health perspective, it's not just about, what is the diagnosis? It's also about, but how does your lifestyle play into that? And so when the pandemic happened, we realized that there weren't a lot of people talking about it from an applicable perspective. Everybody was telling you to take a break and go for a walk and do some exercise. And Ben and I are over here being like, that's not it. So we put Burnout Blueprint online. We took all of the data we had gleaned over a decade in practice. We've taken all of the thousands upon thousands of patients that we've treated globally for this, and we put it into an online course so that no matter where you were and no matter what stage of burnout you're in, you have tools that are evidence-based and applicable to your day so that you can actually recover from burnout and get back to living. I thrive on failures, and I don't necessarily deem them as a failure, but my goal is to always have more questions unanswered than answered at the end of the day. And so I deem a day to have been quote unquote a failure, or a quarter to have been quote unquote a failure if I haven't learned something. So, and this is, like you can go back to the beginning of the podcast and listen to how we've talked about burnout. And then, 3 years in, how are we talking about it now? It's changed dramatically, and it's changed dramatically for a couple of reasons. One of which is the fact that the data has been updated. So as research comes out and as data comes out, we obviously change our recommendations because that's what we should do. But we've also learned more. Clinical experience has gotten more. We know how to see things slightly differently. And so the podcast has grown and clinical practice has grown and our work has grown because of that. So if that doesn't happen and if I don't really get challenged during a day, then I'm like, oh, how do I challenge myself more? How do I glean some more information from my brain? How do I make myself think about things in a different way? And kind of that all leads to this idea of like, what does business success mean? There's no such thing as balance, right? Balance means you're like taking one thing and you're pulling another away, and you're always trying to like keep the scale that's invisible, that just has a pile of external and internal expectations created upon it. You're trying to balance something that technically is designed not to balance. So business success for me is about integration. Do I have energy at the end of the day to spend with my kids and my partner? Do I want to take the dog for a walk around the block when I get home? Am I bottomed out, or I'm excited? Am I excited to spend time doing homework? Am I excited to spend time like running around? And do I have the energy to run around with my kids? And so all of that is how I approach what a business success is. It's creating time and space to spend outside of the business. And it comes down to my goal in life is for my patients to not need me. Because if I've done my job right, then not only have we fixed whatever problem they've come in with, I've also given them the tools to be able to fix that problem again, or at least be aware of that problem before it gets to the stage when I met them first. And so a business success for me is always like, do you need me anymore? Because if you don't, that's great. I've done my job. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. There's always time. That's a big one. We have this idea that we have to do everything all at once, but there's always time. So don't rush it. Take it easy. Just relax and enjoy the moment. As a recovering perfectionist, perfect is not the goal in the real world. Maybe it is when we're in school and we're chasing that A and we're chasing all of these things, but it's really not. Done is better than perfect. I think I probably would have relaxed a lot as a teenager and in my 20s if I had realized that sooner. And you can't plan it all out. It's more so just, so I live on the ocean. Like the clinic that we practice in looks out over the Atlantic Ocean, and you see the tides move twice a day. And the tides are a reminder that just because it's in one position at one moment doesn't mean it won't be back there within 12 hours or 24 hours. And so you can't plan everything. You can't define it all perfectly. You can just, turn your ship in one way, set your eyes on the horizon, and do your best. And your best is always good enough. Oh, I'd want to know if she had fun. I would want to know how many rules she broke and how much fun she had. That's what I would want to know. That would be an amazing conversation. But that's my goal. My goal is actually to not live to be 100. I'm aiming for like late 80s. Like that's my goal. And I just want to be able to go, like live long, and then I want to die really fast. And to me, that's the best way of living, is to live long and as full of vivacious energy and rule breaking and everything that I can, and then go really quickly, hopefully overnight. Though I do always love talking about self-care. And self-care is this, especially within the burnout conversation and within the hormone conversation, we get this idea of self-care. And self-care is brought out to be something that you almost have to purchase. Self-care for moms especially is, well, buy the candle and the cozy robe and go to the spa and get your hair done and go grocery shopping. And I'm like, first of all, going grocery shopping, that's a chore. That is not self-care. But what true self-care is, and what the true understanding of self-care is how do you build your life with things that truly bring you joy? Good self-care is financial management. Good self-care is understanding your hormones. Good self-care is mental health management. Sometimes the best self-care is actually just turning off your phone. And so as we kind of develop in through the burnout conversation and the hormone conversation, what's underlying it and the fire that's really sparking me these days is how do we create a revolution around what self-care actually is?
Wow, what a great start to the day. What an excellent start to the day. I think the theme that we're sort of is health, well-being, and looking after ourselves. Dr. Ashley, thank you so much. That was really, I love the detail, I love the science behind the technical information, but then the applicability to our lives. And most of us here aren't in our teens anymore, so a lot of it was around the burnout, managing 1,000 different hats and making sure that we're all staying buoyant, and some really, really, really good tips, and moving away a little bit from go get your spa, go do this. They're very fleeting, but real solid tools that we can use that really give sustainable sense of in the driver's seat of your life. So Dr. Ashley, I really appreciate it. That was so clear, so succinct, and I'm sure there's lots in there for all of us to use. So did anyone have any comments or questions around that interview that you'd like to share? And if you would, certainly unmute yourselves. Everyone's good, great. Well, Ruth, Go
Yes.
ahead.
She, the part when she talked about self-care, and she says going to the shops to do like a shopping is not okay. But the way she explained everything, it just became so clear, because I really believe I'm now in my perimenopausal stage. And the things that she was talking about, sometimes the heavy days, and then the next day it's like totally so much less than the day before. They are real things that, and I like the way she teaches. She's
Yeah.
awesome. I wish she were here. But anyway, Dr. Ashley, thank you so much for a great presentation and the
Yeah.
information.
And just to highlight too that she had the online program Burnout Blueprint. So no doubt, I'm sure we've got a link somewhere, or no doubt that's easily found. No doubt on her website. So yeah, for all of those that are needing a bit of help, go for it. All righty, so we might move on. If I can ask, if there's some background noise for someone that's not muted, so if you're not talking, if you could just mute your microphones, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. So next we have the wonderful Selena Cheshire, who I have had the pleasure to be hanging out with for the last few days. And she has a beautiful, beautiful story to share from her own experience. She's from the UK, and I believe it's a little bit late there. So really looking forward to hearing your story. And I will put you center stage. Thank you, Selena. If you could start with a little bit about your background and what you're going to share with us today.
Oh dear.
Good morning, Selena, or good evening, Selena.
Good evening. Good evening. Yes, my name is Selena. I am in the UK, as you heard. I'm 56 years old, and I'm a mother of two, a grandmother of two, and yeah, I'm a health coach, a cancer survivor, an author of two books, and a public speaker. My story today, I'll start. Okay. Well, how would you respond if you hear somebody saying, "What are you waiting for? You are already healed"? You know that everybody around you is dying. That very morning or that previous evening, somebody had passed on. And in the middle of the night, you dream or you hear a voice saying, "You're already healed." That was me, 2015, beginning of the year, or end of 2014. I was in a oncology ward. I'd been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4. I was a Christian Science nurse then, working with people who depend on prayer. So I really felt I was always prayed up. So for me, wasting time on praying directly for myself, it wasn't really something I wanted to do. I thought I was always praying. But when I discovered that I had cancer, actually it was my son and my daughter, they said to me, "Mom, you are not yourself. We want you to go and be checked at the hospital." And they saved my life. I went to the hospital, and they found it difficult to tell me that I had stage 4 cancer. But I just said to them, "I've come to you. You need to tell me what it is and how you are going to treat me." So they said, "Okay, it's Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4, and we want to start chemotherapy as soon as possible." That was the only option they gave me. They never told me about, like giving me pills or whatever. It was just chemotherapy, chemicals being pumped into my body. Was I scared? Not really, because I had never ever seen anybody, with cancer. Most of the people I've heard, they used to die of cancer because or people always think cancer kills. So my belief was that's okay. Whatever they want me to do, I'll do because maybe that's the end of me. But I wasn't scared. So they started doing it. I think after 2 cycles, I had, like ulcers, terrible ulcers around my lips, my throat, and my chest. And I couldn't eat, swallow my own saliva, or do anything. And I started, like thinking, what do I do now? And fortunately for me, a friend of mine referred me to a doctor who was in Zimbabwe, Dr. Matanda, and he was a Seventh Day Adventist doctor. He gave us some things, he gave us a lead, what to do, what to eat. And so we started doing that, detoxifying my body, not eating sugar, not eating meat, not eating dairy products, going out for fresh air, doing in like breathing, exercises. And so I started doing that. Unfortunately, I had a group of women because I had joined a market, like an online business, and it was about some supplements. And so that group used to meet, like every Sunday, 7 o'clock in the evening. I couldn't sit up in bed when I started, like with them. I couldn't wash myself. I had lost my hair. I had lost, but the age of living, like I really felt like I'm going to live. I wasn't afraid of dying. Though when I went home, I thought my kids were going to suffer. So I would think there was some jig in my bathroom. So sometimes when my son is away, my daughter is away, they would go out or they would go into uni. I would think if I just can take, that jig, drink the whole bottle and die, then I will just relieve my children from suffering. I was a single mother then. Then I would think, but if I die, will it help them? Who will they be? I know I'm in a foreign country. If I was in Zimbabwe, things would have been maybe would be better. So then I would say, okay, I'll not die, I'll live. Just like sometimes with chemotherapy, with cancer, you lose your mind, you lose half of your speech. It's like it goes right into the mind, into your brain. And so it's like, okay, I started to teach myself to talk again because most of the time I was on my own for maybe almost 18 months, in and out of hospital, 8 months. Then the other months, I was just home, looking at the ceiling and doing nothing. But at the age of surviving, when I started, like researching and following Dr. Matanda's lead, I discovered that food was my medicine, natural food. And I used to crave food from my country. So I would even ask my brother, my sisters to send or to refer me to, just people to bring me food from my country. And that saved me. Afterwards, that's when I wrote a book called My Pain, My Teacher. I think I've got a copy today. Just give me a sec. That's my book called My Pain, My Teacher. When I posted this, the front cover and the back onto Facebook before I started writing the book, my manager then saw the cover and people told you that I was thanking the doctors for helping me, you know, to be at that stage. Then she phoned me and fired me after 3 months. That I couldn't be a nurse and then do what I was doing. So anyway, I didn't really mind, because I thought if God wants me to share my story with other people, then He will make a way for me to survive. So 2000 and 2020 or 2018, I was just like thinking, what do I do now? I need something. I need to do something to tell people. People now, they would be coming to me and say, "Oh, how did you survive? How did you do it?" And then I would tell people what I've been doing. But people are people. You tell them I was eating. I've started eating, like having vegetables, salads, smoothies, and they thought that was all. It takes a lot more than just eating. You have to change the way you think, the way you act, the way even lifestyle completely, my lifestyle completely changed. And so I thought, okay, I was sharing one lady, I went to visit her in hospital. She was telling her daughter, I want what Selena was eating. Write down what she tells you and then give it to me. Then I use some products called stem cells. That's from vegetables and fruits by Superlife, which is a Malaysian company. And so she says, okay, I will have that. Then what about food? What were you eating? Then they write down. But then I did more than just eating food. I did meditation. I did breathing techniques. I walked in the park. I walked around. And then I started reading books, listening to, like YouTube videos. So it was I was feeding my body with the right nutrients and my mind, my brain with the right nutrients. So when people started dying after I've tried to help them or share with them my story, I thought this is not good. I need to go to find something which can really give me, some momentum of saying exactly people do this and this and this. So 2000, beginning of 2020, when COVID just started, I found an institute to train as a health coach. So I trained as a health coach, and that's when I learned even what Dr. Ashley was talking about, the hormones, that the finances, that being health comprises of a lot of things. Basically, the college you have got about 12 things, which you can say if you have all those things, not even just half of them, you can say I'm healthy. But you can work on things, if you want to do finances, education, relationships, activities, home management, home cooking, all the spirituality, your joy. It's the things which matter in our lives. I didn't realize that. So it's like, okay, when I was just writing this book, I had, like an acronym which I wrote to say people can use. It's called it was action. So no, it's act. It's like the book of acts, book of activities. Then it is accept. When people tell you something on when you realize that things are not working for you, accept or acknowledge. Then create an environment conducive to healing or to having what if want to be an entrepreneur, you have to create that environment. Then the other thing, T is take action. You need to take action even if you have the knowledge, if you have you accept whatever it is. If you don't take action, like if the doctor told me that, okay, Selena, do ABCD, and I wasn't going to do it, it wasn't going to help me. People can tell you that this is good, or I think this is the right way, or what. If you don't want to do it, then it's not going to help you. So I thought, yes. Then S, for me, S was serving. I love serving. I love sharing because sharing is like serving other people. So it's like, okay, what do you do with the knowledge? Do you keep it? Do you just take action on your own or you serve other people? So I love it. And then that's when I came to around people after being, like fired. I thought, what do I do? Okay, I became a coach, but you don't get paid. I think there's some coaches who have been coaching for a long time. They know that it's not an overnight. You know, you have to be known. You have to, sell yourself. You have to talk to people, which is really something which I'm not very good at. Like I haven't been selling myself. I've been meeting the right people. So it's like, okay, I managed to get into my finances. I came across a company which helps me do that. And so now it's like I can go around and tell other people that, okay, after all else has been done, now I know I'm rebuilding my life because I didn't give up on myself. I had the courage to say yes to the word God we had said, you are already healed. I said yes against all odds, even though I was, like shitting myself. I couldn't walk to the toilet. Had a commode pan by the bedside. I didn't give up on myself. I had my why, and my children in a foreign country was my why. I had a brother who passed on the same time I was supposed to die. He was in hospital same time with me, and I survived, but he passed on. So I had a reason to say, okay, now I've got his kids. They need caring. They need somebody to look after. I had a problem, a child, like a project which I had started when I was 15 in my mind about, like teen mothers, children being forced to be into marriage when they were starting puberty. So for me, I still had a lot to do and I still have got a lot to do. That's my why. And that's why I love doing what I do, sharing, going out there, encouraging people to say, yes, you can do. My company is called Live, Thrive, Enjoy. So you have to, in order to live, you thrive, then you enjoy your life. Don't just, be there. You are there to enjoy life. Be yourself. So that's me. And I love it. If you want to talk to me or you want to, my email is mypenmyteacher@gmail.com. And I'm on Facebook as Selena Chesha and Instagram and LinkedIn. Thank you.
Selena, thank you so much for your share and your story. I listened to you the other day and getting another, I guess, extra part to what was going on for you at the time as well. Really, really valuable. Can I ask you, when you think back now to that original diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, given what has happened as a result of that, you've got a speaking career, you've got a couple of books, you've now using all this experience to elevate and created the company. How do you view now getting that diagnosis?
No, I think it was a blessing in disguise. Because it's like maybe I needed just to slow down. So to me, it was a blessing because I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it's really like, okay, it was a wake up call that, okay, I still have got life in me. And I've got this, like a lot of people's lives to touch.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, some of them, even now, they came to me and say, can you come back into nursing? The manager who fired you has passed on. And I said, with all good intentions, I'm sorry, I don't think I fit anymore.
Like you've kind of expanded past that and you've got more to give.
I've got more to give, and I can't be just giving it to a few people, maybe 5, 6, for 5 years working in the same facility or visiting a few people around me. I want to touch more people, more lives.
Yeah. Wow. And that is the holy grail of when life throws you adversity that not everybody does. A lot of people, and in my background as a nurse, 100%, I see people right to the bitter end why me, why me, why me? And yeah, it's not easy. No one's saying, right, we need to flip this coin and just go, you know, peace, love, and mung beans, and you know, we're going to turn this around and make it something positive. It's hard. It's a challenge. But the reality is, we all live on planet Earth, and we're all going to be faced with challenges. The question is how in time are we going to process that? How are we going to use it as a springboard for the next chapter? So applaud
Yeah,
you
it
for
was. I mean, it's not easy,
Hmm.
but sometimes, like when I was asking myself, what's my why? Why should I live on? Why shouldn't I just? Because I was literally the guy like going through a tunnel. That's when I just thought, okay. And the voice says, you are already healed. I thought I was almost going. And my daughter was saying, Mom, you're not giving up. Because, it's like sometimes you think, okay, that person, she was younger than me. She was 42 and she just passed on. And that other one, she was 50 and I was in my 50s then, just beginning of my 50s. And I thought, okay, she's gone. So why? I'm not special. But then you think, okay, the God in me is bigger than that. I mustn't be afraid. Come on, be strong. Then people will come and say, no, 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 you are going to go through this. It's only a challenge. We can fight this together.
Yeah.
That's when
Yeah.
I learned, okay, I have to look after. I call this my temple. And I'm
Yeah.
passionate about my temple. My temple needs to be cleaned. My temple needs to be nourished. My temple needs to be cleaned. And
Beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah. And I love how you harness that it's not just physically clean from nutrition, it's from mind, body, it's meditation, it's appreciation, and spirituality, mindset. So yeah, that's how it stays clean. Has anybody else got any comments or questions for Selena? No, we're all on the quiet side this morning. I might just finish off that one then with Selena. You may have heard that amazing speech by Angelina Jolie when she was winning I think a humanitarian award, and she was saying, why is it that there is a woman sitting in a refugee camp that is just as talented as me, just as capable as me, but I'm the one that's given the opportunity and they're not. And there was no explanation as to why, but it was then her job to do as best she can because that person at this stage didn't have that opportunity. So when you're saying that your brother sadly passed away in the time that you were not well, that I love that you've probably sort of used that same idea that he sadly didn't get the opportunity to discover what was possible, but you've used this as your springboard. I have, and I'm going to use it to elevate yourself, your family, and your community. So,
Yeah, I think my brother's son now is in China studying, like computer science. But he calls me dad. Sometimes he says no because you're my dad. It's like, okay, I know you're my aunt, but you're my dad because you look after me. So it
yeah,
is my responsibility. I mean, I know. I mean, I have quite a lot of children. One of my friends passed on, at a young age. She gave me a son who was 14 then, and now he's 38. So it's like, okay, I just brought him up, and I've got another son in South Africa, adopted as well. His mom passed on when he was 7. Now he's about maybe 39. So it's
yeah,
like, okay, I mean, I have this because that's my reason for survival.
yeah, yeah,
That's my passion to see those people and women. I've started, like a project for women, like doing goats and in Zimbabwe, in Kwekwe. So they are trying to make a living, and I'm happy to be part of them. So it's fine.
beautiful, amazing, yeah. Thank you so much, Selena. Really appreciate hearing your story and everything that you're doing out there in the world. All righty. Okay. So we have up next in the health and wellness space. We have Rachel. Am I saying it right?
Corcoran.
Corcoran, my apologies. You're the only one on a reasonable time frame here. You're in New Zealand, so you're about 10 o'clock now in the morning?
Yes, we're perfect.
You look the most bright and sparky, I think, out of all of us. Rachel is in New Zealand, and her story and her beautiful...
What's the time in Australia?
We are just going 8 o'clock, and kids are getting ready to go to school and learning how to be very self-sufficient. So I believe, Rachel, you will be sharing your expertise on health and how you can elevate your lifestyle.
Yes, and it's actually really great because I've caught the last two speakers and the synergy is just absolutely outstanding. So it's really great to see that there's people in this industry that I believe are taking it in the right direction, because I believe for a long time there's just been a big chunk of something missing, and the industry in terms of wellness and weight loss and those kinds of things really just, I suppose, relying on people's insecurities and stuff like that to sell snake oil, their wares, whatever, instead of looking at the big picture and what we should be aiming for with people. And things like we should be teaching them how to be self-sufficient in this area and that kind of stuff. So they're not relying on somebody else, or not relying on quick fixes and things like that, which essentially don't work long term. And from my experience with the clients that I get in, are actually kind of detrimental to their long-term health in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's great, and it definitely seems like that's the avenue that we're sort of traversing today, which is fabulous. So can you just tell us a little bit, Rachel, about what you do, why you've gotten into health, and just give us a little bit of a shape around that?
So I have a company called Happy, Healthy, Fit Female. So we're obviously, we do coach male clients as well, but obviously, female tends to be our main client structure there. And I've named it that specifically because, we want to be fit, we want to be healthy, but there is a way that we should be doing it for ourselves that keeps us happy in the process and post that process as well. So I have a saying, general health knowledge is useful, personal health knowledge is power. And so what I do is I teach people through what I refer to as the health impact zones, how it works for them, what they need to be looking at in terms of how it works for their personality, because we're all different, not just in DNA and the way we think and everything as well. We've all got different environmental factors going on. Some of us have children, some of us have grandchildren to look after, those kinds of things. Some of us are high-level executives and have all of that come into play. And our DNA is different, even to our sister and our brother. So all of those different types of things come in. So the health process to me is about making sure, if you think of it like a jigsaw puzzle, everybody needs all of the elements in place. Everybody needs a border. Everybody needs a certain part of this picture and everything for it to come together properly. But everybody needs to put it together in their own way, and the way that is right for them, for it to, one, be easier, and two, for them to actually thrive. And they also need to know how to tweak it, because we change. You've had a hormone expert on here this morning. Females are notorious for their hormones changing. So we need to be able to learn to read our body again, because I think in a big context, we've stopped listening to it. So learn to listen to it, understand what it's actually saying to you, and then work with your best way to actually optimize your health in all of those different areas. And I loved what the hormone specialist said, and that balance is rubbish, because I fully get that. And because, as she said, balance means all things need to be equal, and life just doesn't work like that. So I prefer to think of the word synergy. So, or symphony is probably a better one. So yeah, symphony. And if you think of it like an orchestra, there's a beautiful tune being played, but not every instrument is going at the same time. They've all got their time and place, and they all know when to go and when to back off and all of that kind of stuff. And it's the same with your health. There's the major impact zones, and your last speaker talked about those as well, and I like to reiterate those. We look at nourishment, being nutrition, is a big one. I divide physical into two separate things. So we can't get away. So one of them is weight and body shape and that kind of stuff, because in this day and age, we can't get away from, are we happy with that? Is it sitting in the right place for us and stuff? But the main thing I concentrate on with the physical is your physical adeptness. So do you have enough strength? Do you have enough mobility? Do you have enough coordination? Those kinds of things to be able to do what you want on the daily. Then we look at general health. So that's, how often you're getting unwell. That can be major things, or it can just be, are you continually getting minor colds, flus, and all of that kind of stuff? And then we look at the mental, and everybody kind of defines that in their own way, or I believe everybody should define it in their own way. So some people, mental health is in terms of, am I suffering anxiety? Is there depression and all of that kind of stuff in there? For other people, it's simply, am I being challenged? Am I learning? Those kinds of things. And then looking at spiritual and emotional as well. And everybody defines those interchangeably or utilizes different contexts for what those mean to them as well. So just making sure that they're getting all of those things in there. And I think I developed the system pretty much because it started for me actually quite young, and I didn't realize that the threads were kind of being put together until a little bit later. When I was in my teens, my mother was diagnosed with high cholesterol, which is a family condition for us. Like, there's that kind of stuff, for decades. And it was during the 80s. So that was during the time when everybody was kind of saying, you should be vegetarian and all of that kind of stuff. And I decided that, was into the health thing, that I would go vegetarian with her. And it just did not work for me. And we were doing it well. It wasn't like, we sat there eating, non-nutritious pasta, every night. It was good quality food. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that was when I kind of contracted really bad glandular fever as well. I was off school during that really important year for 4 months. And then I was only allowed back for half days. So, kind of knocked me around quite significantly. Fast forward again a few years down the track, and I had gotten into my sport quite heavily. And I was actually attempting to break into the New Zealand under 23 rowing side. And again, that was during that period where athletes were told to eat loads of carbs and all of that kind of stuff. And I was actually under a nutritionist because my performance kind of was lagging, and I was actually putting on weight and everything. And somebody that's training, good quality training 3 hours a day, that's pretty hardcore physical stuff, should not have the corresponding weight gain and those kinds of things as well. And literally, she was telling me I was a liar because, I've given you this food to eat. You must be telling me a load of rubbish, or else, things would be changing. So after, kind of a month of that, I just kind of gave it away. And it was like, well, I'm not actually lying to you. This just does not work for some reason for me. And then I moved into a flat, funnily enough, with a whole lot of guys who were high-level athletes as well. So I was the only female in that scenario. And obviously in that kind of instance, you all take turns cooking and everything. And they just like cooking meat and salad. That was their thing. And funnily enough, my weight improved, my performance improved, all of that kind of stuff. So I just sit into that body type where I need meat, for everything else to gel properly. And again, I didn't make the connection until I again got sick, and I was actually in the police force because that was the job that I wanted to do right from the time that I was really young. And I kept feeling really underwell, and I was going to doctors and they were like, you must be depressed, it must be the shift work, just giving me all of these just completely rubbish, or seemed like rubbish diagnoses in my head. And nothing was changing. I actually left the police force because I thought it could well be the shift work and the stress of that job and stuff, and it just didn't improve. So that was when I went into the fitness industry, which is where I started this career from. And obviously I was having clients come in and doing similar things with them because that's what you did back then. And some of them were absolutely thriving on it. Some of them were doing okay. And some of them, it just wasn't working. So it was kind of like, what can, what's going on here? And during that time as well, as I said, my health didn't improve when I left the police force. So there was all of these like little things going on. And actually one day I went to my doctor again because I was still feeling unwell. She had a bit of a poke around my tummy, I think, just to make me feel like she'd done something for me, paying her the $50 for the 10 minutes that I was there for. And I kind of thought, that does not feel good. But she wasn't worried about it. So, and I was kind of left feeling a little bit dumbfounded again. And the very next day I went to my osteopath and I kind of said to him, before you give me a bit of a tweak, can you just have a feel around my tummy? Do you know what to feel for? And he said, yes, I do. And this was less than 24 hours after I had been to my GP. He had a poke around and he was like, your liver and your spleen are so inflamed, it's not funny. He said, there's something major going on with you.
Wow.
Yeah, so he suggested I go to a certain doctor who was a medical GP, so a general practitioner in the standard kind of context. So he had done all his medical training, but had done nutritional and environmental sciences and all of those additional kinds of things on top of it. So he had a good natural health background as well. And, kind of got the rundown of what had been happening with me and everything, and decided that he would take a hair sample. And at that stage, they could only send them over to the States. So that totaled off. And about 6 weeks later, he called me back into his office and he said, kind of came in with this big concerned look on his face. And he was like, you've been poisoning yourself, dear. And I was just like, what? And he said, your arsenic levels are off the charts and there's a huge amount of cadmium and mercury in there as well. And I was like, okay. And yeah, it just kind of blew my mind. I was relieved though to actually have somebody acknowledge, because a lot of those doctors were telling me in the end it was in my head.
So where did those compounds coming from your diet and environment?
No, so what we actually put it down to, and this is where those environmental factors come into play big time, is that, because of those 3 compounds being put together in that instance, when I was living in Nelson, which is one of the most beautiful parts of New Zealand and probably the world, we were just renting a farm cottage down there because we didn't know how long we were actually going to be there for. My partner at the time was a really good rugby player, so we had to go down there for his rugby and everything. He'd been bought by one of the Super 12, what was then the Super 12 teams.
I think prerequisite, if you're in New Zealand, you must be a good rugby player. Anyway, I digress. Okay, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so we didn't know how long we were going to, stay. So we just ended up renting. And the water tank, which was catching all the rainwater and everything, wasn't actually attached to the plumbing system. So, we were just kind of grabbing water from out of that tank and putting it into the fridge that we would use for cooking and drinking and stuff. But me being my, unique little snowflake self doesn't like drinking cold water. So I was
just coming from the water source. It wasn't actually coming from your diet as such?
No, it was coming, but from a different water source. So I was actually drinking it from the river water because we lived right next to a river, and that was what the plumbing was attached to. And that river, and I was thinking clean, green, pristine New Zealand. Nobody says you can't drink the river water here. Maybe lately in a few places, but as a general rule, it looked clean, it smelled clean, it was sparkly. There was nothing to indicate that anything would be untoward with it. But we lived next to forestry and the mills and all of that kind of stuff. And those 3 compounds are in the stuff that they use to treat wood.
Right. So how did you go through the process then of eliminating that from your system, and what was the end result for you in terms of how that shifted that feeling of anxiety, depression, all those sorts of things? I think listeners will be really interested in that.
Yeah. Well, to me, I wasn't actually anxious or depressed. That was what they were telling me. I just knew that I was underwell and was trying to find an answer for it. They couldn't find an answer, so they made it my problem.
Okay.
So with this doctor, basically, because I had been taking it in small amounts over a long period, that was why the doctors didn't find it when they gave me blood tests or anything, because it wasn't in my bloodstream. My body was doing its job and keeping it out of, as long as it could in the places that were going to make the major differences. But, by that stage, with continued exposure, it ended up in my organs and stuff like that. So what they did was basically put me on some pills, which were kind of like the chelation therapy, if that's how you say it correctly.
Chelation, yeah.
And it would bind to those elements, and then you'd urinate them out. So lots of water and everything as well. Okay. The unfortunate part of that is it would also bind to all of the good minerals and everything in your system as well. So everything came out. So it was quite a draining process, really. So I had to do a few days of that detox, then 3 weeks of really high mineral replacement, and just keep that on a rotation. They retested me 3 months in, and it was still really high. Then gave me another 3-month protocol, and it was still high but coming down, and kind of just said to do it for another month. And then my doctor just said to me, look, you need a break from this. It's, the cure is pretty hard work. So, but all of those things are, like are precursors to cancers and everything. So you don't want them staying in your system. You don't have a way of getting them out. So,
where are you now on that journey in terms of where you're at and how that's sort of helped in your practice, what you do and who you work with?
So what actually happened during that break was I got pregnant. So my body was actually well enough at that stage to obviously, get pregnant and take a baby to term and all of that kind of stuff. And she's just turned 17.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's gone fast. I decided at that stage that my body was probably, I was feeling really well. I had a really good pregnancy. I had a really easy birth in terms of what most people experience and that kind of stuff. And then my focus was on nurturing her. So I had kind of assumed that if my body had got to the stage where I could, run a full-term pregnancy and that kind of stage, that my immune system and my healing system was working well enough to kind of cope with what was left. So I think all of those threads in terms of like clicking with the nutrition and what was happening or not with my clients and what was going on with my health and just trusting that gut instinct and everything was what helped me put all of this together in terms of that personal health knowledge is power. So, the general health, like I say, general health knowledge is useful. We all know that we've got to eat well. We all know that we've got to look after our spiritual health. We all know that we've got to look after our mental health. But it's being able to define and refine how we do that for ourselves at any given point in time to actually optimize it. So it's more about that understanding. And so what I do is I really just teach people how it can work for them. And there's a lot of, when I'm working one-to-one with somebody, there's a lot of backwards and forwards in terms of, what's happening for you at the moment. And I think what I'm kind of like people like about the way that I coach too is I'm good at taking the science and because that's changing all the time. My God, science is just coming up with new stuff so quickly. And a lot of people are still stuck in the whole, this is what I was told 20 years ago, when we know far more than that. But what's actually really hard for people is taking that scientific knowledge and making it applicable to them. So, or understanding it in a way that makes it work for them, rather than it just being so much in their head that they just ignore it.
That's fabulous, and it sounds like you've got a lot of your own personal experience and that's infused into what you do. So where can they find you, and are you online in terms of your practice, and where can we find you?
Yes, so if you want to join in, we've got a couple of things going on Facebook. So just Happy, Healthy, Fit Female is our public page, and there's probably, I think we've got about 20,000 women on that.
Brilliant.
And we've just started a discussion group. So if you look at the groups and put Happy, Healthy, Fit Female discussion group, we have a few little things going on there where we kind of give people like mini missions, and we talk more about, how it works and that kind of stuff. Even in that context, what I have always struggled with, the gym industry and the weight loss industry, and in some context, the health industry and everything, is it's all challenge orientated. And to me, that's kind of like, we're after a quick fix, or, it's a real pass-fail system. Like if it doesn't work for you, that plays in your head, and it's not necessarily that it didn't work for you. It just might not have been right for you. You might have just, happened into something that wasn't right for you. So like those kinds of discussions go on in that discussion group and everything as well. And we talk about missions because, with a mission, you're on a journey, and it's not always going to go perfectly. You've got to work in the challenges and work your way around the challenges and all of that kind of stuff, and being holistic about it. So, we talk about whole of life and that kind of thing. And that goes back to that symphony, and that at different times we need to be paying more attention to different things, but we don't want to let everything else slip. For example, if you've got a sick parent or something like that, and your mental and emotional health is being affected by that, or you're looking after them, that needs to be your priority at that time. But we don't want to let, your personal health in those other areas kind of lag behind completely. They're just, you want to still be paying attention to them, but not, at the detriment of what you need to be doing for those people you're looking after.
And I love that you're changing, we might need to wrap up, but I love that you're changing that paradigm of, who's joined many challenges over Facebook challenges. And you're 100% right. You do feel like, oh, it didn't work for me, or I really didn't do the course that well. And
or it was my fault, it didn't work.
Yeah, 100%. And so I love that you're shifting that paradigm. So clearly doing some great work. Say that name again.
Happy, Healthy, Fit Female.
Beautiful.
Yep. Websites.com.
Rachel, so much information. I love that you shared a lot about that personal journey, and obviously it's traversed over that 17 years and landed you right where you are now, and obviously adding so much value in the health sector. So thank you for some great work, and no doubt people will be able to find you online.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. That's awesome. Great. Did anybody have a question, comment they'd like to add in? Everybody's good. All good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Oh, we got to hand it with Ruth.
Yes. I wanted to find out because we in Africa drink a lot of river water in the villages. People just go to the river, get your water from there, and I wanted to find out. Do you think that this kind of information, because of the toxins that you were getting from the water, do you think that this is something that we need to be sharing in Africa? Not that we have so many choices of where else can we get our water, sources of water. But
Yeah,
I'm just thinking.
what I think you would probably want to look at is in each area, kind of where you're sourcing the water, if there's any main industries or anything like that that would be, so I think what happened in our instance was they weren't dumping those, so it wasn't something, where there was a conscious, dumping of those chemicals in the water or anything like that. It was actually leaching into the water table through the soil and stuff. So probably what you would want to look at is, because it's a big place over there, and there's going to be, different water sources in different areas, is are there any industries or anything like that in the immediate surrounds where those chemicals or any similar, other chemicals that might cause, disruption to the human body, are they using them? And what are they doing with them if they are in close proximity? So I don't think overall it's probably a thing you would want to be majorly worried about. There's probably, I don't know, kind of over there whether you could just get the water tested by an entity of some kind might be the easiest way to go. But I wouldn't spend too much time overthinking it, because like you said, there's not too many water sources that you've got available to you. So the best that you can, go for the cleanest source that you can find. And if you've got some way of filtering it, even try and run it through a filter, would be the most basic answer.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome.
All righty. So we're moving on now. We have our next speaker, Dina Wiggins. Is a purpose doula. This is going to be interesting. We've got Dina's video to share. So, Dina, can you just kick off and just let us know where you are, how old you are? If you just unmute yourself.
That would help. I'm delighted to be here in this beautiful global infinity of Herstory and giving our different perspectives of her story. I am in the United States. I am a Muskogee Lands, also known as Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow, Muskogee Lands, that sounds very exotic. Thank you. Dina, we'll play your video and then we'll have some questions after that. So just bear with me. And
hello, Herstory Circle. I am Dina Wiggins of DinaWiggins.com, and I am so thrilled to share a couple of thoughts about why soulfulness now. So before we get started, I know that people can hold a lot of different definitions for soul. So I want to invite a definition that is more invitational from one of my favorite teachers.
Marianne, we don't see the video. We hear it, but we don't see it.
It's like a wild animal. The soul is tough, resilient, resourceful, savvy, and self-sufficient.
Can you see it?
It knows how to survive in hard places.
No, ma'am.
The soul,
we just can hear it.
It's a path.
In that case, Ruth, have you got it your end?
If I can't find it, Dina, I think this is the universe trying to tell you you need to speak live.
Let me just see if we can get...
How's that?
Just see if we can...
Let me try and find it. Maybe in the meantime, video.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah,
Because your video is 5 minutes, isn't it?
I think it's about 10.
Okay.
let me just try. Let me know, folks.
Hello, Herstory Circle. I am Dina Wiggins of DinaWiggins.com. Share a couple of thoughts about why
Can you see?
soulfulness now. So before we get started, I know that people can hold a lot of different definitions for soul. So I want to invite a definition that is more invitational from one of my favorite teachers, Parker J. Palmer.
Can you
And
see
here are a
it?
couple things he says
Yes,
about
we can
soul.
see her now.
It's like a wild animal, resilient, resourceful, savvy, and self-sufficient. It knows how to survive in hard places. The soul is creative. It finds a path between realities that might defeat us and fantasies that are mere escapes. All we need to do is to bring down the wall that separates us from our own souls and deprives the world of the soul's regenerative powers. So, how many of us find ourselves today in between those bridges, between some really challenging times, some hard places, and just the way that the different many ways that we can bypass or go into fantasies and kind of escape that reality. So our souls, that part of us that remains unnamed, that part of us that is the resilient core of who we are as spiritual beings in human form at a time right now, that can really allow us to tap into what is regenerative at the soul level at this time. And that sounds super big, but I want to remind you of that part of Parker Palmer's share with us, is that it begins with us. It begins with connecting to the soulfulness with us. And so another great teacher of this time, Otto Scharmer, and the folks at the Presencing Institute, they talk about the three greatest divides of this time that we're in. And those three divides kind of fall into these three buckets. And so one bucket is the separation of self and self, which kind of sounds like that invitation through Parker J. Palmer that he's inviting us into. And then also the separation of ourselves with other peeps. And then thirdly, our separation from ourselves and nature. So when we're stepping into this inquiry about like, what is our soul really calling forth now? What really wants to come through us at this time that will both sustain us individually and collectively and help us to co-create the answers, co-create some pathways in different challenging situations that we are in. So it's a combination of bridging the reality with the possibility. And, our souls allow us to do that. So how do we tap into this soul, this soulfulness for ourselves and for others at this time? One can be listening to our soul speak. And we all have different ways of connecting to how our souls speak. So I want to share one with you today, and that's about connecting with our liberation language. So Jack Canfield, another one of my favorite teachers, one of his success principles is about event plus response equals outcome. Event plus response equals outcome. So there are many events that are happening in the world that seem like they are beyond us. They seem like they are so huge. How do I even take a chip at it? Right? And I would offer that it's in our response. And that response is kind of true. Like, oh, of course it is. Of course it is. But there's a difference between reacting and responding. And sometimes we react because we haven't given ourselves a pause, some breaths, to really be with the event or the situation or the experience that we're in, to allow us to connect with our different ways of knowing and sensing and our higher wisdom. That's that connection with self, or that connection with us and our higher self and our higher wisdom that will talk to us during these times, but oftentimes it's in the voice of a whisper. And sometimes if we are in a fight, flight, or freeze response, it's hard to hear the whisper. So I would invite us to take a couple of breaths. And in those breaths, we might find out some things. In those contemplative moments, in our contemplative practices, we might find out some things. We might find out that some of our reactionary responses that are like a knee-jerk response or like an autopilot response can reflect several things. It can reflect our fear. It can reflect our conditioning, and our conditioning can come from many different sources, from our cultural conditioning, from our family conditioning, from all of the would and should and how we should do things, and all of those things can tend to lead to reactionary responses. But our responses that are more soul aligned, they tend to feel like freedom in odd places. And doesn't that sound like a part of Parker J. Palmer's first invitation to us? Is to connect with our way in difficult places, our way of surviving. And I would offer from surviving to thriving in difficult places. And so I call those responses our liberation language. And that is the thing that liberates us in that moment, that liberates our creativity, that liberates our innovation. And oftentimes that can be things that are unorthodox, that are countercultural, that are sticky, that are messy, that are disruptive. And those things are oftentimes what is exactly needed to kind of disrupt the status quo, to disrupt our go-to reactions, to disrupt us from the things that we just automatically think are the apropos ways to react when certain things happen. And we allow our creativity to come through. And this is really important because we all are wired at a DNA level, at a soulful level, to create certain responses in this physical world. So some of us may respond from a place of creativity. Some of us can just create different ways of people understanding and people and sharing different perspectives about things that we're experiencing. And that's vital. Some of us are wired, and it just seems like, wow, their hand just was made to go around a megaphone or a mic. They're great orators of this time. They can tell the story that invites different perspectives and invites an understanding that is an amazing gift right now. Some of us are researchers. Some of us are connect the dotters, right? We're the ones who do the research to understand the cause and effect. How did we get here? They can kind of build these bridges for us to understand things at a root level. So pivotal. And it just goes on and on and on and on. But these responses are liberating because they are connected to the truth of who we are. And two of the biggest questions that we can answer in this time are who we are in this moment and why are we here? What is our regenerative contribution that's coming through at a soul level, right? And so that really can impact, and that can give us agency in times when we may not feel that we have a lot of agency. And just, hey, this is mine. I owe this. This is my true expression. This is my soulful expression, my soulful response at this time. And what tends to happen is that leads from one step to another step to another step, and they start to kind of accumulate over time. And that really impacts outcomes. And so the outcomes start with us. I attended a wonderful session with Meg Wheatley recently, and she is a great leader of this time. She's been helping organizations and individuals for many, many years. She's been an activist for many, many years. And that's what she's inviting us to do right now. She's inviting us to connect with ourselves and to also connect with what is right in front of us. And when we start to express through our liberation languages, we are doing just that. And we are building this resonance. We are making it easier for us to collaborate with each other, because as we appreciate our liberation languages, we appreciate the liberation of others. We become multilingual at a time that can be so noisy. We develop this capability that I think is one of the biggest capabilities of this time, is to understand and hear ourselves, to understand and hear through situations, and to understand and hear each other. So that leads to the last thing that I want to share with you about this soulfulness today, is that we also have an opportunity to create soulful places. Well, how do we create soulful places? And, culture work can be some of the most challenging work to do within families, let alone small groups and organizations. But what we can do is to make it okay to explore our truths. We can make it okay, more than okay, to have places of psychological safety so that people can begin to ask questions in a way that is inviting, and without people trying to fix each other, but just having conversations through complex times. We can create cultures of change that way, around the dinner table and around the boardroom. That's ours, and we can own that, and we can do that. We can think about creating environments in which groups can come together and they can tap into their individual wisdom that connects to the collective wisdom that's needed to unravel the knots of our time and come into shared understanding from multiple perspectives that don't have to bunch together and become this safe place, safe in terms of connection to the ways we did things before, or connection to established norms and customs. But we can begin to create from a space of co-creation what's being asked from us now. What are we being asked to understand now? What deeper wisdom is available for us to tap into, to be, and to do, based on that soulful regeneration that Parker J. Palmer so eloquently invited us to. So those are just a couple of things that, if incorporated into your daily practices, incorporated into your daily lives and the busyness of everything, that can have huge, huge results that begin with us and that extend beyond us. And so why now? Because there are many challenging spaces that are inviting us to bring our soulful essence and our soulful responses to. Thank you so much, Herstory Circle. It's been amazing to be with you today.
Fabulous. And we're back. Let's get that one. Dana, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Your articulation of your message on soulfulness is really crystal clear, and your delivery is brilliant in that, you're really serving your message beautifully. And if you're a doula, oh my gosh, you that'd be the most soulful deliveries that you must do. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So if I look at the practical application of what you're talking about, and if I'm using a real-time example, so when we're talking about, getting separated from self, separated from others, separated from nature, and really looking at, a liberation language, using Jack's Canfield event, response, outcome, but we often get lost in reaction because we're disconnected. If we applied that to an example, so last night around our dinner table, we were sort of talking about what our challenge was this year, and my 16-year-old said that she gets really anxious being in the classroom and being around people. And I didn't quite realize to what extent, and I'm realizing, it's actually quite an intense reactionary, where she's kind of, I'm not putting my hand up, I'm just not feeling comfortable, or that kind of stuff. What would you suggest? You talked about breathing. What are other things that you might suggest in terms of that soulfulness and being able to get her back into her own body and a space on that soulful level?
Yes, witnessing her, really hearing her, practicing active listening, validating her experience as her experience, and crawling into the space with her. So, and I think that, and I have a teenager that's one of my best teachers right now. And my teenager is transitioning to college. He's a freshman this year. And so he spent his entire senior year as a pandemic kid, pretty challenging. And so this first semester has been riddled with events. And my reaction as his mom and someone who loves him was to fix, which shortened the opportunity to really listen and be with him. And I found that as I relaxed and just gave him a floor, gave him a forum to fully express, he started kind of like unraveling his layers by himself. And I was just witnessing him. And we came into a shared understanding of what support looks like for him at this time. And like that is really key, I think, in the parental relationships, is to just understand, what does that look like? And so he started speaking his liberation language to me, instead of me trying to tell him, doing the exact conditioning that I was speaking about, so I can catch myself. And I can create a different wiring to, wow, when I do that, what can I do to kind of settle in myself? So then that puts it back on me. Am I unsettled in myself? And is that also being projected in the space and being projected with my child or anyone that I'm interacting with right now? So these are tools to help us with our self-awareness, so that we can even pull back the layers to really get at, okay, if I'm not reacting, if I'm not reacting based on conditioning, if I'm not doing all these things, what else is available? There's the sprouting of our liberation language.
That's really just on the money. It's funny because my headspace was going in, what can she do? Adding to a tool belt of breathing, etc., when she walks into the classroom. But I really appreciate you. What is my reaction as the parent? Super uber helpful. I still want to fix.
Yeah. And when
After I've listened.
It's like if you are a mom and you experienced labor, right? And all you want to do is to deliver. All you want to do is to push. And then there is a communication. Wait, you can't do that yet. And so what do I have to do? I have to practice my breathing. I have to pant. I have to do, things so that I am working in with the natural rhythm of things, and not working against the rhythm of things. And so, my approach with life is to view life as a purpose partner. We have so many examples of rhythms and cycles and surrender and structure and flow, and all of these things can be tension spots for us in this pivotal time that we're in. you know, but as we kind of lean into those pauses and do things like journaling, do things like going out in nature, getting some natural vitamin D, feeling the earth below our feet, you know, just, you know, having those times to kind of center, we can hear those soft voices that often give us sparks and nudges. So sparks could be like our connections to our higher wisdom.
Mm.
Nudges tend to be those things that happen, those nudges that move us into the direction of the behaviors that would support the direction of our sparks.
Yeah.
And we can start to hear and start to attune to that. And we all have our different like ways and rhythms with that. And so, as a part of my liberation language, I always seek for ways to highlight that and encourage people to explore, have some intentional practice, play with these things, and see what comes up for you.
Great. Love it. Really well said. Beautiful. And in our fireside chat, is there anyone else that would like to add a question, a comment about what they've heard and what nuggets they're taking away from Dina's insights there? Ruth.
Yes. Dina, hi and welcome to our tribe.
Sorry, can someone mute whoever's? We just need people on mute. Thank you. Sorry, Ruth, go ahead.
All right, Dina, welcome to our tribe. And you know your presentation. It's very, I don't know. It's assuring, and it really got to me in the sense that you know your voice and your intonation and the way you just presented it. It's so powerful, so powerful. And I wanted to ask in terms of you say when we are as a mother, when you're in labor, you want to push. And so when your child is having issues, I never thought of it that way, hey? That when your child is having issues, you just want to deliver, you want to help instead of maybe listening to them and which is what we do actually during the labor, that we go with what the baby is trying to do, whether they are pushing or now they are resting, whatever. And yet when they are now, we are talking to them and we want to solve their issues, we tell them what to do instead of listening to them. So thank you so much for that we need to listen to our children. And what a powerful presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Oh, you're so
Marianne.
welcome.
Yeah, really great. Dina, is it where can we find you if someone wants to get a hold of you?
Oh, sure. You can email me at Dina, DENA, at Dina Wiggins, DENAWIGGINS.com. I have two websites, dinawiggins.com and also soulfulfacilitator.com.
Soulful Facilitator. That's beautiful. Love it. Great. And what time is it there right now, Dina?
It is just after 5 p.m.
Another one with reasonable timeframes. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and we no doubt will be seeing more of you over the summits. And yeah, really, really great resource you are, and very, very good at what you do, clearly. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so glad to join the tribe and be able to spread the word widely about you. This is amazing.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Now, as we move on, we have our next wonderful speaker. I'm just going to highlight you there. Nicole Yates. Hello. You're still on mute. Would you be able to take yourself off mute?
Oh, yeah. Hi, good morning.
Nicole, could you just let us know who you are, where you are, and what we've got your video, so I just wanted to check in and what your story is all about.
Sure. So I'm Nicole Yates. I'm a brain health professional. I'm a rehabilitation counsellor and best-selling author.
Wow.
So I live in beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's 8:05 in the morning here.
Fabulous.
And yeah, basically my message, I call myself an expert barrier cracker. And
Love it.
so I help people overcome, their limiting beliefs and crack through those barriers to achieve goals. And one of the main tools I use for that is brain optimization. So using that precious thing we call our brain to really optimize it to achieve everything that we need to.
Oh, wow. Love brain hacking, brain health, brain everything. You're tapping into my nursing and my love of all things neurolinguistics. Fabulous. Thank you. All right, we'll get your video set up and we'll hear more from you afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You were a teenager and thought you knew it all? That was me. And I'd started working from the age of 14, part-time jobs, and I basically got my first tax return at the age of 15 and bought myself a motorcycle, much to my mother's horror. And this night, the 19th of June, 1987, was a night that changed my life forever. I was planning to go to a basketball game with my girlfriends, and it was a Friday night, cold, wintry night. It was raining, and I argued with my mother before I set foot out the door onto my motorbike. She didn't want me to take the motorbike out. Anyway, I'm driving along to the basketball game and approaching a roundabout when suddenly the lights on my motorcycle just go out for no reason. I couldn't stop right there because I would have been stopping in the middle of the roundabout. So my plan was to get to the other side of the roundabout and figure out what was wrong with my lights, fix it, and keep going. Unfortunately, I never got to the other side of the roundabout. I was hit by a driver, hit and run. He left me on the road for dead. He dragged me for about 200 metres. I was entangled in my motorbike. The motorbike was entangled on his bumper bar. He dragged my motorcycle for about another 800 metres. Sparks flying. It was loud. The bike ended up catching fire, apparently. And I was left on the road for dead. So I died on the road there, but was fortunate enough that a passerby who stopped was a nurse who happened to have oxygen in his car. And he revived me, called the ambulance. And in hospital, I died another couple of times. And my poor mother was told, expect death or life in a vegetative state. They asked her to sign organ donation forms, put me on life support. And yes, so another two near-the-death experiences that night, and I lapsed into a natural coma for 3 weeks. Mum tried everything to try and awaken me from that coma, even playing music she hated. At the time, it was Violent Femmes. And my friends and neighbours and everything would come in and talk to me, and Mum even tried to bribe me out of the coma. She said that she would buy me a puppy if I woke up, because I'd wanted a puppy, and still nothing. But 3 weeks later, I slowly started to come out of the coma, but I couldn't talk and I couldn't walk and I couldn't move any muscle in my body. I couldn't control my bodily functions. My brain was so damaged, it couldn't even control my temperature. So it was a long rehabilitation. Well, comparatively with the prognosis, it wasn't that long, but physio, occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychological therapy, hydrotherapy, there were lots of therapies. And I did end up walking out of the hospital, but still the doctors had a very negative prognosis for my future. You'll never finish school, no university. I've got a report that basically says if Nicole was ever to return to any form of employment in the future, it would need to be highly supervised and not meaningful work. Well, Gertrude, I'm very, very stubborn. When the doctors said you can't, it was like a red flag to a bull. It was like, right, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that became my driving motivation for everything from that point on. It was something that drove me. When I had the second near-death experience, I went to the other side and I was told, it's not your time yet, you've got more to teach. So I guess I can only explain that fire in my belly that keeps me pushing on and fighting through barriers and wanting to do what I do today, which is help people reach their highest potential, particularly after brain injury, brain trauma. It's just something within me that I can't really explain, but it's something that I know is my higher purpose, if you like. Yeah, look, it wasn't as simple as just sort of waking up and getting back to a normal life. There were a lot of stages in between there and there were times where I wished I hadn't survived that accident. I got so depressed because I couldn't walk properly, I couldn't talk properly, I couldn't remember what someone told me 5 minutes ago. I couldn't read a book anymore because I couldn't remember one page of a book. So there were a lot of barriers. I had epilepsy. I couldn't drive anymore. And I guess if speaking to that young lady now, I would surround her with as many positive people as possible. I was so lucky to be supported by my beautiful mother who never gave up on me. And I would say to take small steps at a time and set yourself up for success. So if it's just having a shower every day, that is a step towards progress. Work within your limitations, but don't let other people's limiting beliefs dictate your future. That would be my key thing. Other people's limiting beliefs are things that we do not have to take on board. And if you set yourself up for success by taking those small steps towards progress,
Looks like it's just loading again. Give us a sec. I'm totally fascinated by this story. Is it up to 8:12? Not quite sure what's happened to the video. I might just have to reload it and start from 8 minutes 12. Let's see. I'm totally immersed in what you're saying here, Nicole, and it's just gone.
Miriam,
Yes.
maybe ask her to present live if something's gone wrong with the video.
It's just loading. I was just seeing if it was just going to come back, but it's just seeming to have stopped midway.
Miriam?
Nicole,
Miriam?
my apologies.
You're right. You're right.
Would you like to continue on from where you were at on your story? And then I've got some great questions to ask you as well.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It was a long process of getting to where I am today, but it did mean setting those goals. I mean, our brains rely. There's such a they rely on pictures. There's such a visual thing. The brain relies on visual cues to keep it on track, and that's where goals are so important. And although I heard a lot of limiting beliefs from health professionals primarily, and that they put me on a disability pension when I finished school because they believed I wouldn't be able to work. That wasn't the future I wanted for myself. So that's not the future I accepted.
So when did you find after your accident, you'd finished school, where did you find that you start to make traction and feel like you were actually on your path where you're actually feeling like, you know what, I'm actually getting out of this and I'm actually making progress and I feel like I've got that momentum?
Yeah, well, look, for a while I did believe that I wouldn't be able to go to university, and maybe and I believe in hindsight that if I had tried to go to university at the time when teenagers, late teenagers are doing it, I probably wouldn't have succeeded because I still had a lot of therapy to do, and I had memory management strategies to learn. Learning to read a book again, learning to be able to organize my time so that memory wasn't such an issue. I'd forget basic things, like I'd forget to take my tampons to school, things, really basic stuff. So basically there was a lot of learning, and probably it was a couple of years after the accident, I decided I wanted to do beauty therapy. So that involved setting goals. So in order to get into the beauty therapy college I wanted to in Australia, I was living in New Zealand at the time, and I needed to do biology. So I went to night school and did a part-time course in biology. That was good to learn my brain. When I was in my last year of high school, I did an introduction to psychology course because before my accident, I wanted to be a psychologist. And the introduction to psychology course was fantastic because I learned about memory, and I learned about memory strategies and mnemonics and memory tricks and things like that to understand my memory. And with any health issue, I think we often hand our power over to health professionals. And treat their word as gospel. Now, I mean, I've got nothing against the health profession, don't get me wrong, they have a very critical place in society, but we need to take ownership as well and do our own research so that we can be informed to ask intelligent questions and learn more about the condition that's impacting us. I've been in occupational therapy for 16 years now, and I quite often see people who will go to the psychologist or the physio or whoever the health professional is, and they'll sit in the office and feel like they've done their part in their rehab. But while they were sitting in that office, they might have been told or advised to do this, that, or the other, recommendations to improve healing and so forth. But because they've gone to an office and they've sat down and they've listened, they think that's it. They go home and they don't do it. And Selena picked up on that earlier, that, you know, if we don't take responsibility for implementing those things that are recommended and do our own research into things, other things that could work, and then consult with our health professionals about that, that's a really holistic way of reaching your highest potential. So, you know, I'm all for basically taking some of that power back by doing your own research, asking for copies of your blood tests, asking for copies of your scans, learning what they mean. So it's just so critical.
Brilliant, brilliant. And what kind of clients do you see in your practice as working in brain health?
Yeah, look, I see a variety of people that, you know, that are concerned about Alzheimer's disease because they have, you know, in their family, people that have had brain injury, people that are, you know, are being impacted by medications that are impacting on their cognitive function, you know, and that can be cholesterol medication, antidepressants, and so forth. It can be people who are simply just having memory issues. I've developed the Rethink Memory Management app to help with memory management, and that's free on Google Play and the App Store. It's got a little thing here, Rethink. It's spelled a bit funny. It's pronounced Rethink, but it's got no H.
Rethink.
Yeah, the two I's are for the I from Rethink and the I from Tinker, because particularly after a brain injury or any brain trauma, you really do need to rethink how you do things and tinker with ways to do it. So that's where that came from.
Love it. Love it. So that's an app on Google.
That's on Google Play and the App Store. Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent.
And that's got brain training games on it, and it's got, you know, management tips and resources, brain health tips and resources. And if you rely on a carer or a support person, you can actually invite them into your app, and then you'll be able to add them to your appointments or tasks that you need assistance with. And they'll see it in their calendar too, and it auto-populates with Google.
Fabulous. Wow. Wow. That's
So I've got lots of strategies, tools, and resources that can help people really optimize their brain function.
And do I see you've written a book as well? Hold on to hope.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Holding On to Hope. Finding the New You After a Traumatic Brain Injury, which is based on my own experience with traumatic brain injury, and but also written with my rehabilitation counsellor hat on. So it's a very solution-focused book. At the end of each chapter, there's key takeaways as far as tips, strategies, resources to help, you know, navigate that journey from brain injury and discovering the new you.
Wow. It's seriously incredible resources that you've got there.
Thank you.
And yeah, very passionate clearly about what you're doing. And I'm thinking of two people in particular, young people that have had traumatic brain injuries. So I'll be getting your book for sure. So you shared some wisdom in around what you would say to someone with a brain injury. In your case with your mum, who was, I guess, holding on to hope that you would survive, what would you say to the parents of a young person, as you know, it's a very uncertain future? What would you say to the parents?
Yeah, look, the people in a caring role, you know, need to be cared for too, and need to take time out for themselves. And support groups are a great way of doing that. You know, my mother particularly found that helpful, to go to a brain injury support group and speak with other parents who, you know, understood the challenges of having a brain injured child. And, you know, she brought home a different daughter. The daughter that walked out of the house on the 19th of June, 1987, never came back. It was, you know, I'm totally different personality. I couldn't remember the clothes in my wardrobe, the town I grew up in, you know, so it was a huge adjustment for her too. And yeah, so really getting support, I think, is critical through that phase, and continuing to, you know, hope is such a powerful thing. There was one health professional who gave me hope, and that was my psychologist. He didn't say you can't, you won't, you'll never. He gave me an IQ test because I wanted to go to university, and I didn't do it for another 15 years. But he said to me, you know, Nicole, it's going to be really, really hard, and you're going to have to try really, really hard. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. And that was hope.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. And I think that's a great message for health professionals, anyone that's involved in that sort of caring industry, that being very mindful to put our own beliefs about what people's potential are. And something that has really come through, I believe, on this Herstory circle is never, ever, ever underestimate the power of someone's own innate drive to defy the odds, to metabolize the information, but just go, you know what, I'm doing this, whatever that might be within their health, where it's, you know, people have put limitations on them and they're able to really push forward. And the medical world looks at it from a medical perspective, but doesn't look at the soul, the spirit, belief, mindset. And
mindset, so important. And we can learn it, and that's the thing, you know, the unconscious mind. And the more we learn about the unconscious mind and its power about everything we do, you know, if you've ever cried in a movie, that's all the evidence you need of the power of the unconscious mind, because you know that that's not reality, but you're driven to such emotion because, you know, your subconscious mind is taking that on board. So imagine if we fed that unconscious mind positive messages.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the premise that, you know, if negative thoughts or, you know, sort of thoughts that bring you down can in time create ill health, then if thoughts that empower you, can they actually bring about health? So it's interesting. So thank you for being such a great voice, and love what you're doing out there. So needed. And yeah, and some great resources there, your app that you've got, and holding on to hope, and obviously your practice as well.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, my apologies about the video. I still don't know quite what happened, but we got there, and loved just speaking with you.
It was the universe's way of saying,
you're just going to tell us what you're doing. And I'd love to open up. I'm sure we've got some comments and questions. That was really interesting. Anyone like to, where have we got? That's all the gang back on here. Has anyone got something they'd like to ask Nicole? And if you do, unmute yourself. We got Dina. Go for it, Dina.
Oh, Nicole, what a delight to meet you and learn about your journey and what you're up to in the world. I just wanted to share with you that I am a stroke survivor. And and I just really appreciate what you shared about taking your power back. And like, you know, really kind of like getting into like the understanding of what our bodies are communicating to us, and really being an agent for ourselves. I just couldn't, that is just so powerful. That's so powerful.
Thank you. Yes, so important to, you know, it's empowering. It's empowering when you really do delve deeper into the issues that you're, you know, suffering, and looking for your own solutions to that, and discussing it with your health professionals. It's a much more collaborative approach to your healthcare, and you're more likely to stick to it rather than being told by someone else, this is what you should do.
That's right.
And I like it when when you say because the doctors decide for you. They tell you what to do, and we trust them with our lives. We trust them with our health, but they don't know it all. They don't
No,
know
they
it all.
don't.
I mean,
No,
they,
absolutely.
they
I'm supposed to be a vegetable or dead. They clearly don't know it
yes.
all.
So they forgot about the mindset. They forgot about the power of the mind, and even the power, even the ability of the body to heal itself. They
Absolutely.
sometimes forget that, and they just tell you, "Oh, this is a write-off." But what a wonderful story! What I wanted to find out is when you came to your relationship with your mom. Did you remember what happened on that last day before you went into before the accident?
Yeah, I had memories of, like, I remembered that I was going to basketball. My goal was to go and play basketball with my girlfriends. I remembered arguing with mum before I left the house because she didn't want me to take my motorcycle out, and I remembered the lights going out on my motorcycle. But the couple of years before that, and then the couple of years after that, were very, very hazy. I went to a Dire Straits concert apparently a year after my accident and had a wonderful time, but I have zero memory of it.
And still
Unfortunately,
nothing? And still nothing?
still nothing.
Oh,
But I'm sure that I had a great time.
I'm sure too. I'm sure. Well, what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And you'd be an absolute light. You're clearly very passionate about what you do, Nicole, and you have a bit of a sense of humor about it. And I think we can all appreciate it was a very traumatic time in your life. But to be on the other side of that to be doing what you're doing and is inspiration for many. So I'm curious, just how would you now frame up that event now in terms of where that fits in your life? Is there anger around it? Is there appreciation for it now? Is it a gift? What is it now to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's like before the accident, as I said, I wanted to go to university, I wanted to be a psychologist, and it took me another 15 years to get to university because those small steps of success built my confidence to be able to go eventually. I was around 29 when I started to go, well, maybe I could. And as I look back now, that 16-year-old girl was headed down a pathway that was probably pretty typical of 16-year-olds at the time. I'd started smoking marijuana, or I got a motorbike. I was going down a fairly rebellious pathway. I don't know that I would have actually got to university anyway if I'd continued down that pathway. This accident was, this life-changing brain injury, I think, was meant to be. And I was told by the powers that be on the other side that it wasn't my time yet, that I had more to teach. And I believe that I'm fulfilling that role now through my teaching in brain health. And so I don't know what the future may have been if I hadn't had this brain injury, but I'm happy with the future now.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love that. And I think it's really important that we highlight, clearly, most of us are on the back end now of traumatic periods of our life. And I think it is really something that is worth highlighting, how our perspective has changed over time as to what that incident was, what it represented then, how we felt about it, and how we feel about it now, and in terms of the concept of being able to connect the dots looking back is and seeing it as a gift. So yeah, yeah, I think that's something that we're really sort of seeing here. And I love that we're sort of still going on the theme of health and well-being and this thing called a body, and how we can manipulate it very much on a mind level and a soul level.
Mind over matter.
physicality.
Find your grit to never quit.
Yeah, I like that. Find the grit and never quit. I like it. Thank you, Nicole. And I think that there's another book in you that you've just touched on in regards to being on the other side. I think there's a whole story there.
Oh, there's a bit of it in here.
I think you do a whole nother one on that. It's a fascinating topic. I love it. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time and the amazing speakers today. We'll move on now. And we have who we got? We got Bushadu. Bushadu is not here at the moment, but we have a video to play. Bushadu is based in South Africa, has a 17-year-old daughter with special needs. And without further ado, I believe Gertrude's got the video to roll.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Macha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another amazing woman coming to us all the way from South Africa. Welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude, for this opportunity. I am Basudha Modak from Johannesburg, South Africa, and I am 44 years old, but actually I believe that I am 17 years old because that's how old my child with special needs is. And to diagnose her as special needs is incredibly tough because she appears like a normal child. But when you sit with her and you take the time to find out, you will understand that she is born different. She's born to change the world. She's here to change the life of everyone, including me, to become a better human being. And this journey of mine started when I held this beautiful child of mine 17 years back on the 2nd of October 2004. An incredibly beautiful child who was extremely understanding and accommodating right at that point. She didn't cry much. She was never fussy about food. And at that point of time, I was trying to myself cope with a joint family, with my job, and being newly married. So I never actually realized or took the time to understand why this little girl is so quiet. And by the time of 6 months, she was not tumbling. That was my first red mark that asked me to go to the doctor. And that point of time, the doctor told me that she has mild cerebral palsy and hypotonia, that is her muscles are flabby, because of which she cannot sit. So with that, I started with therapy session. And when I went to the therapy, for the first time, after a battery of tests, you will get bored with all the tests I spoke about, BERA, MRI, fMRI, genetic functioning tests, and all the tests that a mother or a parent is asked to undergo when a doctor is not able to actually themselves understand what is wrong with the child. Because that is how it was. She was interacting wonderfully with people, so autism was ruled out. She started walking at 2.5 years old, a bit flabby, so cerebral palsy got ruled out. Then they told us for the autism test again at 3 years old. That took 6 weeks to come. It came from America. The results came out negative. That means genetically she is not autistic. But today, after this 17 years of journey as a mom, I can tell you that even if your child is not autistic, there are certain characteristics that a child will show if they are in the autism spectrum. And this journey of mine has got nothing to do with the medical terms that the doctors use often. This is about my experiences of trying to fight for services, trying to get her into a school, trying to give her a social surrounding that she actually loves, accepted either. So, especially for me and her younger brother, it became very essential that one of us is always there for her, so that when she's not able to express her needs, we can comprehend and make the other person aware. Because we understood that when a person is not behaving properly with her, it's not their fault. It's not the fault of my child either. It's this communication gap of what she is trying to say and what we as normal people cannot comprehend. I
Wow.
understood from her that if you have love and compassion, this is absolutely from her type. She hugs everyone she meets, every single person. And I understood that when you have the love and compassion, the first barrier in your life is already done. Because when you go to a doctor, it is very clinical. They check you for the 30 minutes time, or they give you the therapy for the 30 minutes of time. But as a parent, we expect the child to be skilled in the life skills. And in life skills, I'm not thinking only of cooking or gardening or taking care of herself. She already does that. She's very efficient in that. I am talking about her to be able to sit in a social setting individually and alone and able to interact, which
You have
she is
had a
still not
very,
able to
very
do.
challenging time with your daughter up until this point. And I can't imagine what
I won't
you.
say challenging.
Mm, I can't
I
imagine
won't
what
say
you.
challenging. I would prefer to define it as an incredible learning experience for me, actually.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was not challenging at all because she's so loving. It was a learning experience. I still learn every single day.
So if you were to talk to another mother who has a special needs child experiencing the same challenges you or experiences you went through, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give them to make the journey a little bit easier?
Yes. The first thing I tell, and I continuously tell every mother, is trust your child. Let your child guide you on what her or his expectations are. The doctors will tell you something, the therapist will give you something, your parents, family, people who are concerned about you will give you a different advice. But you are that we as mothers don't follow when we become overwhelmed in certain situations. That gut instinct is that bond with your child. If you allow the child to take charge, they will become successful today or tomorrow. Trust your gut instinct. Finally, we are all animals. Animals know how to take care of their kids. They don't take advice from others. They listen to what they feel right. So you trust yourself as a mother and you will do absolutely fine.
That is absolutely wonderful. So let's now go into the future that you see for your daughter. You said you want to make sure that she's able to function fully in society. What steps are you putting into place? What have you looked at that can help enable that to happen?
2nd October, like I said, is her birthday. she is incredibly, I don't know, God gifted and magical with colors. So I have helped her set up a tie and dye venture. It's still not in a business form. She is making tie and dye t-shirts and dresses, and she is selling them. But the thing is, whatever color she's putting into, it's absolutely her choice. People are buying. Means, as I tell you, I have got a backlog of 6 orders, and I have sold around 20 of them last month. And I was initially, like, everyone told me, give it a 6 months time to understand the market. But like I said, I don't know how this incredible variety of colors has been loved by everyone, and no one who has bought from her knows that she has any sort of need, which I was very particular about. No one knows. She has been accepting my that's I think the voice got cut off. Could you hear me, Jed?
Yeah, the sound is cutting
Hello?
in
Could
and
you hear
out
me?
now. And the video has frozen.
Okay.
So something.
Oh, okay. The data, I think, is
it run out?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but the picture is very choppy.
Yeah. Okay.
We're almost finished.
Like
I would like
said.
I just want you to repeat
Yeah,
the
like I
last thing you
said, our
said.
signal is. Yeah. I just said that on the 2nd of October, I started with her a tie-dye venture named as Sammy's Creations. And can you hear me? Your signal is frozen again.
Yeah, you're freezing again. It's freezing. What might help to clear it?
Frozen again.
Rashida?
Yeah.
What might help is for
me.
you to drop out of the call and come back in again. It normally resets. Can you hear me?
I am trying to log on. Suddenly, how could this happen?
Yeah, just come out of Zoom and come back in again.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so I see you coming back. Is that on your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if this. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me properly now? Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, now it's almost perfect. So let's just finish off that last statement. So that is the last question I was going to ask, and then we'll wind it down.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's talk about the future that you're building, and let's talk about the t-shirts. Start from there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Herstory. On the 2nd of October, on the daughter's birthday, she loves colors and she loves the color combinations. She has some sort of a magical gift there. So because she was so interested, I helped her actually start a venture named as Sammy's Creations. And she just makes the t-shirts and the frocks, and I put it in the community groups in Cranston and Lone Hill for now, and it gets sold off. So last month we have sold, without any advertisement, 20 t-shirts, and right now we are pending with 6 orders. And the best part is no one knows about her condition, and everyone has been sharing me pictures of the t-shirts that they have worn and how much they like. And as a mom, that is the best thing for me, that people are loving her creations. And one day I believe the time will come when I will tell that this is the girl who has created it, and then we will see how she is loved. So this is an incredible way forward for her, because she is connecting through her art and her love for colors with the greater community where we stay in. And this is what my vision has always been, like I said before, to get her into community, into society, being alone when I'm not there. So this is a step we have taken in something she loves doing. She will talk for hours on her colors and what she wants to use, and you cannot push her into putting this particular color if she has decided this is the color she wants. And it always comes out incredibly.
That is just awesome. Well, she's truly blessed to have you as parents, empowering her to tap into her intuitive gifts. I really thank you for coming online today and sharing this amazing story. And hopefully, if there is another parent out there with a special needs child who's looking for help, looking for support, how can people get hold of you? How can we give access to you?
I am there in Facebook as Basudha Modak. I have a foundation for special needs parents and women and children named as Storm in a Teacup. Like as the states, we have this high well storm. It started exactly that way. Few women, we were so frustrated with our life. We tried to take control of our life. That's how Storm in a Teacup started. It is always available. We are in WhatsApp. We are in Facebook. Anyone, anytime needs a hearing, because as a mom, we just need someone to be hearing with us. Advice is available from everyone. So if anyone needs a hearing anytime, someone of us is available there. Please connect. We look forward to you. We will all grow together. Our children will be a success one day. Believe that in yourself first. Like I said, your gut feeling. It's your choice.
Thank
That
you
decides
so
what your
much.
children will be.
Thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. Have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Bashida, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story. Bye for now, everybody.
Wow. Oh, Bashida. Oh my gosh. What a tenacious mama bear. Apologies about the glitches. Our beautiful ladies in Africa have some internet issues, and that perseverance to get that message through was a Herculean effort. And yes, so that's why we asked for video, so that we don't lose somebody's really important message halfway through. So I have to say, again, coming through is listening to your own intuition and listening to what you believe is possible, and not taking other people's beliefs about what is possible, even if they are in a position of some form of authority in a situation. And I just really have to, again, Dina, really sort of following on from what your advice was as a mother, stepping back before trying to fix everything and listening to and giving space to a child, and in this case finding out what they were interested in, and in Badisha's case with her 17-year-old, it was colors, and then they've really created something amazing from that. But it was the ability of the mother then to be able to bring it to life, and to create a pathway so that, her daughter feels connected, is able to to feel that they can contribute in their own special way. And I have to really, as I think about my fortunate self, having 3 kids, as far as I know, are healthy, and just running the mill of the usual course of life challenges, that, just the importance of listening into what a child's interests are, and what challenges that would have been for Badusha to really sort of bring to life what they have. So it's a real lesson for me, for sure. So just really want to applaud Badusha for sharing what she's doing, to have a Facebook group out to create support for special needs families, and doing something really meaningful in that space. So incredible. And you're not here at the moment, but hopefully you get to see this on the replay, and really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. Would anyone else like to add a thought around what Badusha's doing? Rena.
It's Renee.
Renee, sorry, Renee. I keep saying your name. I know it's Renee. It's Rena. Renee, my apologies.
I'm teasing. It's okay. I just want to say that I always look at when parents that have children with special needs, we all deal with some type of trauma. Like, we deal with trauma every day. But to actually have to care for someone who life dealt this trauma. It's not like they went out and had a car accident. It's not like they went and got shot. It's not like they got out of some type of relationship, whatever. This is something that life just dealt them. So when I look at the parents that have to take care of those type of children, my heart goes out to them. However, I also know that God gives us grace for everything that we do. So like, for them, I really believe, like, people tell me all the time that I have grace for what I've went through. I just really think that they got an extra dose of grace. I'm not saying that and when you walk in somebody's shoes, you always say, I never could. I learned to stop saying I never could, because then it ends up happening to you. So I'm not going to say, I would never be able to take care of a special needs child. However, just looking at it from the outside, looking at it, it looks like it's very difficult. I feel like I'm incompetent, or I'm unable, just within my own self, to be able to do that. However, like I said, I just really believe that God gives us grace to handle those things. So, I tip my hat, I curtsy and bow. There should be like a whole nother special wing in heaven, that their mansion is 5 times bigger than anybody else's mansion. when they make the decision, because I think the thing that kind of, it doesn't sadden me about it, but I know that and I can only imagine. I mean, I'm a bonus mom or auntie to many. And one of my biggest fears has always been, since I didn't have any biological kids, who would take care of me in my old. You think that when people have kids that and not now, mind you, let's just be real. There are several children out there who are terrible children who will never take care of their parents. So let's talk about just like a normal child that will take care of their parents. You have a child now, and you're taking care of it for all this life. I'm quite sure it has to be kind of traumatic and that's what I'm looking for. Just kind of painful to just kind of figure out who's going to take care of your child who can't take care of itself because you've been taking care of the child. So I think that has to be kind of unnerving. So again, all that grace, everything that comes with it, it's amazing. I tip my hat to her, and I just pray God's grace to continue to shine upon her, so she can continue to do what she's doing and be able to take care of her child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just on what you're talking about, Renee, there, I certainly see in my community nursing profession many aged parents that continue to look after their special needs adult children, and the biggest thing they fear more than their own mortality is who will look after my Johnny, my Sarah, and you're 100% on the money. That there is never that reprieve that they then are in a position where it's like, oh, I'm getting old, I can chill, someone's going to look after me, I'm good. There's, a little bit of payback for everything I've done in my life. It never is. And yeah, so it's that whole journey.
And then you have to be concerned because, and I know one of their biggest fears is because I have a sister who actually works in healthcare. She used to be, I don't like to use, I guess, like the mother of a house of adult disabled people, meaning that they were wards of the state. Nobody could take care of them. And just how, at least here in the United States, I can't talk about everywhere else, but here in the United States, it just seems like sometimes it's all about the dollar. It's not really concerned about their health. They're worried about how many people. They're worried about the numbers. They're worried about people that can get into their program, how much money they can get from the state, and things like that. So, knowing some of the stories that I do know from people taking family members taking the state to court because the family claimed they couldn't take care, or they weren't taking care of them the way the state deemed they should take care of them, things like that. When somebody's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, taking care of their loved ones, and then like you said, when they know that they're going to pass away eventually and they're going to probably go before their child, and if there is no other family member that wants to be responsible for the kid, or I'm sorry, the adult, that has to be traumatizing. It has to be like, it makes you like, I know it probably keeps some people longer here than they probably should be because they just refuse to go anywhere because they don't want to leave the person here. However, I think that, in their final, I think it's more like traumatic for them in their final minutes because that's the last thing that's probably on their mind if they're coherent, if that makes sense. So,
yeah. And I guess the antidote to that is just, looking at where Badusha's at, is being present in the current moment, and just sort of thriving in seeing her daughter come alive and that joint project. But yeah, it's a very, very real reality for many, many people. So as you say, there's got to be a special place in heaven wherever we go.
A whole side of heaven just for them, where their mansion is at least 5 times bigger than everybody else's.
Yeah, I love it. Nicole, you wanted to add in. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I love to focus on strength as well. Fadusha's, with her daughter, and it's something in my work that I do a lot of too, is looking at someone's strengths. They may be different due to injury, but that they can be such a powerful thing to just focus on that positivity of everyone has strengths, and it's just a matter of looking a little more deeply sometimes to find those strengths and nurture them, bring them out, and if they can be used for work, that's even more amazing.
100%. And it's really, and no doubt, doesn't matter how special needs you are, the child has to pick up on the fact that, tapping into something that I'm good at, and thriving in that way.
Self-esteem and good for self-confidence.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Beautiful. Dana, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to jump in. So our family is fortunate that we have a couple of special needs members in our family from different spectrums. So one of my grandsons is on the spectrum of autism. My daughter was diagnosed as bipolar as a teenager, but she had some challenges that we saw from the age of 2. And I really love the way that she reframed it from challenges to like really surrendering and like embracing the journey. And I think that one of my big thresholds to cross as a mother, and I was a young mother at the time, my daughter will be 30 in December. And one of the big things that really changed things for us in our relationship and dynamic was I remember sitting on the stairs one time and just like praying and just doing one of these prayers that was like this guttural prayer. Like, I don't have anything. I was putting myself in a parental timeout on my basement steps. And I remember hearing, just love her. And that changed everything because I studied to understand her. At the time, she was about 6 or 7. And there were so many things that she was experiencing that she could not articulate. She didn't have the words for. So it was like, but when I came from this love and from this compassion and this general inquiry, like it changed everything. It didn't change the challenges that she was experiencing, but it changed like our relationship to it, our ways of relating to it. And like, so I really felt her when she shared that. And we have my cousin who has Down syndrome. He's 38 now. And when he was born, he wasn't expected to live um, beyond the first couple of years. And I remember his grandmother just did not accept that. And so she researched and she found ways to help to build muscle. So it was like the first thing was, oh my gosh, he's walking. Oh my gosh, he can lift his head up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, now he's doing this. And so now he's a person, he works. He works at the baseball stadium. He has this bigger than life personality. And it just was reminding me of like the journey and like what it took for him to like realize a really full life, you know, on his terms, So.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love that you highlight once there's a challenge in your life. I think the fact that you say you looked at the relationship to that challenge, so you were able to reframe your relationship to it. And I think then you have to acknowledge, rather than pushing away a trauma, a challenge, that at some point it's there. The aftermath isn't going away, or the trauma, the experience of it, you are now in relationship with it. And I love that you use that terminology, because you do have to work out your relationship to it. Nicole, I think, you're highlighting too is, your mum's experience with, she's now brought home a different child, and her relationship with, feeling like she might have lost what was she expected might have been coming as her daughter's growing up, all those usual events that happen, and being in relationship with it brings it in front of you then. So I really appreciate you using that terminology. That's really sort of stuck in with me from what you just said. And to see Badusha be in relationship now with, a child that she's, for 17 years been bringing up, and how we're going to be in relationship with the special needs and bring the best out of that. And that has been through, this use of her love of colors and creating off the back end of that, and just shifting that relationship, and bringing out the best in everything. So, yeah. And something really unimportant but important. I love that, Gertrude, you were wearing the same color top, that orange, to match, which was unintentional, but somehow you seem to know you're the colors lady, that she was wearing those same colored lipstick and glasses. You've got a knack. And in the background, Gertrude is caring for her grandson. She sent me a photo in amongst all of this. So she's looking after her other love. Okay. Anything else on the back end of that? Otherwise, we'll move on. There we are. I love it. I love it.
Sorry,
Right.
ladies. I do have to go now. I'm sorry. I've occupational rehab work lined up now. So.
Yes. Your patients, your clients are very fortunate to have you, Nicole, and I'll be looking into ordering that book, and you're doing some great work there. Thank you for sharing. We'll see more
and
of
if
you.
anyone wants to get in contact with me, just www.holdingontohope.com.au, or you can email me at nicole@holdingontohope.com.au.
Beautiful. Thank you. Really
All right,
appreciate
have
it.
a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All righty, so we'll move on to the next. We've got two more presenters today. We'll be doing it via their videos. We've got 5-minute videos to share on each of them. So we have a lady, Anna. Anna is a self-defense and martial arts expert, and she teaches women how to bring awareness to their mental health, and the importance of teaching them self-defense and bringing awareness to the importance of their own mental health. So with no further ado, we look forward to seeing the video that Gertrude's got lined up.
Hi, my name is Anna Alpert. I have been training martial arts for over 20 years and teaching martial arts and women's self-defense for a solid 10. And I've noticed in my training and my life and all that there is a lot of fear. People are afraid of everything, and it's okay. Fear is important. Fear is a gift. As Gavin de Becker, a book that I've read, his book, The Gift of Fear, I've gotten a lot of information out of that. And the main thing that stood out for me from that book was the difference in interaction between men and women. So men are afraid that women are going to laugh at them, while women are afraid that men are going to kill them. And I'll take a second to process that, because most of the time when I say this, women react with kind of a knowing that they don't want to face. And the men that I've mentioned that to respond with, "That's not me, I would never do that." To which I respond, "But do you know other men, or have you seen that behavior in other men?" And they always say, "Oh, yeah, I have." So one thing I want to point out about men as well is they are just as afraid of getting into a physical altercation as women are. They just don't necessarily want to admit it because they don't know how to physically defend themselves either. And as a self-defense teacher and a martial arts teacher, I teach people how to defend themselves if they get into a physical altercation. Ideally, however, you don't ever have to get into that physical altercation, but that is a different topic for a different day. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my journey with fear and demons. So if you say you've seen demons, or you hear demons, or you believe in demons, I just want you to know I believe you, because I do too. And at first, my interaction with them, I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. I'd be in that space in between sleep and awake, and I would just like see this big demon face. And my response would be to like cover my eyes, cover my head with my blankets, and hide and freeze. And once I like learned a little bit about epigenetics and how trauma gets stuck in the DNA, I was like, oh, I have Jewish ancestry. Many of the Jewish ancestors had to hide and freeze to survive. So it was very good understanding of, oh, that's probably where that's coming from. But that doesn't feel good. Hide and freeze doesn't feel good. So I came to a spot where I'm gonna do something about this. So in my mind's eye, I pulled my samurai sword and I started chopping off their heads. This worked. Very effective. Violence is clear, it's quick, it is understood. So that's why we see a lot of violence used, because you know it's easy. For some people, not for others, I recognize. But that also got old. Even though it was a little fun and it was very empowering, it's like there has to be a better way. So then I started thinking, well, what if I shift the demons to light when they come to me? It's like, okay, so I started trying that. And it worked most of the time. Every once in a while I would get overwhelmed and I would just pull my sword out and chop their heads off. Through that process, I realized that actually, if I turn myself to light, there's nothing they can do. And I am 100% in control of my light. And once I realized that and started working with that, the demons stopped coming for a while. And then I did some cranial sacral training and they started coming again. But since I had already done that work, I was in a place where I could be like, oh, okay, that's fine. I know how to deal with this. But instead of doing anything, I just started talking to him. I would invite him to tea. I'd be like, oh, aren't you a cute little demon? And that completely confused them and made them go poof and bye. So in my process, I've been able to become neutral in whenever dealing with a situation that can be quite triggering. First, I ground in myself, and then I respond from a neutral place. So my suggestion to you is, can you, when you get into a place where you're triggered, go to a place of neutrality? And maybe that just starts with you focusing on placing a light bulb at your heart and slowly beaming it up as bright as you can get it, so that your light is full, so that you can then go out and deal with whatever you have to deal with in the world. And that's about all I have to say on that. So hopefully this talk helps, and thank you for listening.
I just love, thank you so much, Anna, obviously from the US. That was really important, what Anna's just shared, and I thank you for being vulnerable. You could see that it was sort of quite a raw thing to be talking about, and to do so in this forum, to be held in a very safe place to share your valuable experience, but very raw experience. And I think there's a lot of application for what you're talking about, whether it's in the form of demons as such that was, I guess, haunting you in that sense. A lot of people that who have repetitive dreams, that they're being attacked, that they're feeling out of control, and it affects them in real time, in real life. And wonder why they're having these repetitive dreams and don't know what to do with that information. And I think that through your process of just trying different things and being open to different avenues of how to look at it, rather than it take control of you, that you are able then to take control of it by ending up in a place of neutrality. On one thing that you mentioned at the beginning, Anna, and I think is really, really valuable, is that you were open to looking at the possibility of epigenetics and looking at, is there some sort of ancestral reason as to why this is showing up and that you're trying to hide. There's a saying that you are the answer to your ancestors' prayer. So with you being able to diffuse what they experienced, and I get chills all over my body as I'm saying that, that their trauma that was massively out of their control, you've been able to look at it from different ways, and you've dissolved very much so what that pain and trauma was, so that you're the generation that ends that cycle. And I think that's really, really powerful. And when you said that you entered into conversation with them, again, I think that it's not inviting the trauma. I think it's actually sort of facing your fears, and that it worked for a certain bit, but what really worked for you was what felt for you that gave you that sense of control was to be within your own light, to turn to your light. You can control that. And I love that. And, that practical application of using imagery. Future pacing and using imagery is well-researched area, and the value of that. And you're just talking about in real time what you did, using the imagery of a light bulb in your chest, in your heart, and going from that space. So I think there's a lot in what you're going out there in the world, and really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing what you have. There was a lot there in just under 5 minutes, I think. So much appreciation when you watch this somewhere on a replay. Dina or Ruth, would you have something that you would like to add? Go for it, Dina.
Yeah, I would. I felt that in less than 5 minutes, Anna took us through her Sheroes or her story journey that I thought was amazing. It was vulnerable, it was authentic, and it was invitational. And so I love that she said, this is my experience and this is what I did. But then she offered the question, can you go to a place of neutrality? And so I always love when people share that invitation for us to kind of find ourselves in our stories, in our journeys, right? And someone shared a quote recently, and I hope I don't butcher this, but they were saying that birthing your own framework is the way to speak your medicine. And so I thought I heard Anna speak her medicine like in her language. And other people might language some things that she shared as like doing shadow work. Some people call it parts work. And I think in Tim Kelly's purpose guiding, he calls it doing voice dialogue or something like that. And so it's just always interesting to me to see how people, kind of find their ways and how there are pathways to other traditions and ways of, healing and exploring life.
Yeah, great perspective on what she shared today, absolutely. And that she's found her own pathway as to what's worked for her, and no doubt will really ricochet out there and help many, many others.
Yeah, in what was interesting for me is when she talked about fear and how then she decided to look, I need to confront or I need to face these fears and have a conversation with the fear, with the demons, as she said. And most of the times we always hide, we run away from confronting our fears, confronting the things that challenge us. Because I think when you confront your fear, then you are able to get to the bottom of it, or to the root of it, and then you overcome. And that's an area of breakthrough that it will never. It may come again, but now you know where it's coming from, and you can identify that this is false, and this is not real, or this is coming because of the root cause. So thank you so much to Anna for such a presentation.
Yeah. And I think too, it's worth highlighting, Anna's chosen to spend the time and attention on exploring what it was all about, and how much it was impacting her. And reality is people do have some quite intense experiences with whether it's in dreams or I guess sort of flashes, and it's very real and feels very real, and it can be frightening, really, really frightening, and makes you feel separated, and maybe going a bit loopy, and being mindful of sharing it with people. And if it goes underground, that obviously can manifest into potentially trying to numb out that feeling. So, of course, you're sort of looking down the rabbit hole of whether it's food, drugs, etc., or just really sort of interesting coping mechanisms. And it takes courage and a desire to really confront that. So I really applaud Anna for sharing that and kind of putting a bit of light on that. It's an experience of many, and that you actually have the power to transform it and dissolve it. Doesn't have to impact your world. So, yeah, beautiful. Great. Thank you, ladies, for your input, Dina and Ruth. That's awesome. And so for our last speaker today, we have, let me just get this up. My apologies. Okay, we have Trina Kavanagh Thomas. She's an intuitive mind-body coach and artist, and she helps you tune into you. She has digital courses, and she's from Nottinghamshire, England in the UK. So I look forward to hearing your story, and Gertrude has a video ready to roll.
Or pep talks, and this is my pep talk to you today, so you can create it. You don't have to watch anyone else living their life, because you can create it right now. People would tell you you have to, like, when you get to this position over here in about 10 years time, then you can be happy, then you can live the life you want, then you can be free of everything. That's not true. It's not true. You've just been fed a load of shite. And you can create it right now. You can live the life you want right now. And it is within your reach, within your grasp. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for this happiness, this thing to come along into your life. It's always been here. You don't have to wait to, experience time freedom, because you have it. Sometimes, just sometimes, we just have to objectively look over our life. Objectively look over it. Not bring in this guilt. Oh my God, I'm doing this again. Not even bringing in the guilt and shame into it. Guilt and shame is last year. It's like 10,000 years ago. Let's whack out the way guilt and shame, because that's what keeps us where we are. It's the guilt and the shame and the fear-mongering of other people that keeps us in the position that we're in. So you can change it. And today you can have a look at your life, where you spend your time most. And one thing in our life, I know for me personally, I spent a lot of time on social media. I mean, a serious amount of time, hours out, up till 2 a.m. in the morning and stuff like that on social media. And then in the opposite side of things, I was going, where's all my time gone? I don't even know where my time is gone. I have no time. And it wasn't until I really objectively, not beat myself up about it, because this is not what it's about anymore. It's just I objected, and I was like, oh, okay, it's here. How do I make it better? How do I get my time? Do I switch off my phone? Do I delete my apps? How do I use it more purposefully, intentionally, and positively to my benefit? And then put that benefit onto other people. How do I do that? Maybe it was closing down my free groups, which is something that I've done recently. Maybe it's, to just, as I said before, switch it off, delete an app. Maybe it's something else in your life that's taking up a lot of time for you. But the time is there, and you have it right at your fingertips right now. Right now. You have it. Because if I told you having more time, having extra space, and having extra energy is literally going to change not only your health, but your life and the work that you do, you will create the firepower, because you have it in you, the firepower to create worlds, to give out new energy to people, and you get to live the life you want now. Hi, my name is Trina Kavanagh Thomas, and I'm an intuitive mind and body coach. What does that mean? I help you reconnect your physicality with mindset and spirituality. I help you tune into you. I like to make sure that everything is balanced, and especially to give a lifelong solution that is transferable in all the relationships in your life. And I really, really, really look forward to sharing more pep talks with you.
That was awesome for the end of today. Wow, I just felt like she was in the room, or we were over in the UK, one of the two, having a chit chat. But for someone that was just telling me to get out of my own way.
Yeah. What a way to end the day.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Trina. I love it. And I love how we've all got our own way of expressing in different countries. And I was like, it's just shite. I love that expression. It's just shite. I love it. I love it. Trina, you just made me smile, and it really is, as my friend would say, you've just done a realitycheck.com. I can clearly see that you just managed to cut through the shite. And I love that you highlight looking at something objectively. So, of course, the example of using social media, we all sort of end up berating ourselves. Oh, my gosh, I've just wasted like 3 hours. I was just going to go and check one thing on Insta. And before I know it, I've just gone down the rabbit hole. Seriously, I can't believe I'm doing that again. And I love that you really highlight, let's just look at that objectively. And, yep, roger that, check. I've just spent 3 hours on social media that I could have been doing something else. No judgment. Let's just look at it objectively, how I can, if that's not something that I want to do as a regular thing, how can I use social media and not let it use me? So I think that was a great distinction, because I think the thief is when we go down the rabbit hole of, I'm such an idiot for doing that, self-criticism. And so that was brilliant. I imagine all the people that you serve, they get a bit of a slap around the head with much love, and you just tell them how it is. And I think sometimes we need that, and I love it. Yeah. Wow. Powerhouse. Ruth and Dina, something you would like to add?
Real powerful, and the way she presents it, like you're saying, I like how we present ourselves in different countries. The way she presents it, so, and matter of fact, like, okay, but very, very true. And makes us pause and say, hi, this is how we end the day for this event today. And stop and think. Is social media using you, or are you using social media?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Ruth. And Dina, what did you glean from this?
I think we just had like a fire burst. Share practical pathways to our firepower. And I just appreciated her. She just had this natural freshness, like what you were saying, Marianne, like this nonsense, but then this like caring soul. And I just thought, oh my goodness, what that would feel like to be tended to by such a caring soul, that just has this unwavering belief in there's a pathway for me. And that's just really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a great wrap up of Trina's story there, and her passion, and sometimes we don't need a girlfriend or someone to sit there and just go, yes, that's not good. Sometimes you need someone that just smacks you around. And Trina, you're that girl. I love it. Go and live a great life and don't get caught up in the stories. So, yeah, thank you, Trina. Much appreciation. And What a great way to wrap up today. Thank you, everyone that has been here. Dina, much appreciation for being here on the long haul today, and your energy and everything that you brought, your story, your passion, and for your input is really, really valuable. So much appreciation for this. And for all the other lovely ladies, Nicole, all the other ones that are presented today and were able to spend some time here on this platform, again, adding to the energy and input and sharing of ideas. So that is the wrap up, the conclusion of day 5 for November's Herstory Circles Global Summit. We've still got a few days left. And I would like, thank you so much, Ruth, for being here. And I know that there was some internet issues yesterday, and I'm so grateful. I promise you, I'm so grateful that we were able to have you here the whole time today. So, yeah. Awesome. And I have to say, on the final note, ending with a massive congratulations to Gertrude on her win, on her pitch, and also for looking at the investors that are looking at investing and moving Herstory Circle forward. And she is probably just in babyland enjoying her grandson. Which she should be, and appreciate you letting us share this platform and working together to bring this out to the world. So with that, have a lovely evening, sleep, day, whatever's working for you, and be seeing you all tomorrow. Oh, there's the baby. Doing great on grandma duty. Sound asleep.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.